You know what's weird about humans? Asked Kustvak, his emerald carapace gleaming under the rec room's artificial lighting. They're absolutely terrible at killing things quickly. Dralzen looked up from his datapad, compound eyes narrowing. That's absurd. They've fought in multiple interstellar conflicts. Sure, but their bodies are laughably inefficient. No claws, no venom, no acid glands. They can't even click their mandibles. Kstivak demonstrated, clicking his own impressively. Just those weird flat teeth and soft skin. Practically defenseless. Like larvae, but somehow less intimidating. Remind me again which species holds the galactic record for most civilizations subjugated? Dralzen countered, antenna twitching skeptically. That's technology, not biology. In a natural state, they're prey animals. Glorified meat sacks with delusions of grandeur. Their conversation drifted through the recreation area of Outpost Sigma-19, one of many monitoring stations along the disputed border of Consortium and Alliance space. The outpost was technically neutral territory, a joint observation facility staffed by species from both factions to ensure treaty compliance. The setup was an experiment in interspecies cooperation, which mostly manifested as interspecies bickering. Lieutenant Alex Reed pretended not to hear the conversation as she sipped her coffee. As the only human stationed at Sigma-19, she'd grown accustomed to being the subject of xenobiological speculation. Most of it was harmless curiosity, though Kstvak had a particular talent for being condescending across species boundaries. I'm just saying, Kstvak continued. In hand-to-hand combat against any evolved predator species, the average human would be dead before they could blink those weird, watery eyes. We compensate in other ways, Alex finally said, unable to resist joining the conversation. She kept her tone deliberately light. Intelligence, adaptability, and really excellent playlist curation. Ah! Lieutenant Reed. Kistovak's mandibles opened wide in excitement. How fortunate you're here to defend your species' honor. Please enlighten us about humanity's great natural weapons. Your fingernails? Your magnificent incisors? Alex smiled, having long ago learned that showing teeth wasn't threatening to most species, just confusing. We're persistence hunters, actually. Historically, we chased prey until they collapsed from exhaustion. How thrilling. Kustvak's antennae swayed in what Alex recognized as the ethic equivalent of an eye roll. The galaxy trembles before creatures who can jog slightly longer than average. Don't be an ass, Kustvak, said Dralzen, though his mandibles twitched in what might have been amusement. Oh, I'm merely engaging in scientific discourse, Kustvak replied. Humans are fascinating specimens. Soft, slow, and with a peculiar fixation on documenting themselves performing dangerous activities for the entertainment of others. What do you call those videos again, Lieutenant? Hold my fermented grain beverage? Close enough, Alex said, finishing her coffee. Anyway, my shift starts in 10 minutes. Try not to solve all the mysteries of human inadequacy while I'm gone. She stood, stretching casually, and headed for the door. Behind her, she heard Kstvak resume his dissertation on human frailty to whoever would listen. The corridors of Sigma-19 were utilitarian, the same brushed metal and recessed lighting found on stations throughout known space. Alex nodded to a passing Dravidi technician as she made her way to the command center. The outpost housed 37 personnel from 12 species, all pretending they weren't spying on each other while officially monitoring the neutral zone. Commander Veleth was waiting when she arrived, his gray scales looking particularly dull under the harsh lighting. As a Saurian, his species name translated roughly to distant cousins of the great devourers, which was both impressive and slightly worrying. Lieutenant, he acknowledged with a slight incline of his wedge-shaped head. Anything to report from yesterday's surveillance? Negative, sir. Standard shipping traffic, all registry codes validated. 2 research vessels with proper clearance, 1 consortium patrol maintaining appropriate distance from the boundary line. Good, said Veleth, though Alex got the impression he'd have preferred some minor incident to break the monotony. You have the command center. I'll be reviewing yesterday's logs in my office. Alex settled into the main monitoring station, checking the array of sensors that maintained constant vigilance over this sector of space. Most days were uneventful, which was precisely the point. The outpost existed to ensure things stayed boring, the alternative being diplomatic incidents that could escalate into interstellar conflict. 4 hours into her shift, the proximity alert chimed softly. Unscheduled vessel approaching, announced Tev, the cephaloid communications specialist, his tentacles working multiple interfaces simultaneously. No identification beacon. Alex straightened in her chair. Origin? Trajectory suggests consortium space, but it's running without standard transponders. Smuggler, suggested Garvik, the weapons officer. His species resembled ambulatory fungi with too many eyes, making his expressions difficult to read.
Possibly, Alex replied, bringing up the visual feed.
The ship was small, sleek, and utterly nondescript, the kind deliberately designed to be forgettable. Hail them on standard frequencies. Tev's appendages danced across his console. No response. Try emergency channels, Alex ordered, and notify Commander Veleth. The vessel continued its approach, ignoring all communication attempts. Its course would bring it directly to the outpost in approximately 17 minutes. Commander Veleth arrived, looking even more serious than usual. Analysis? Unknown vessel, non-responsive, approaching at sublight speed. No obvious weapons signatures, but its profile doesn't match any registered commercial or military craft. Veleth's claw-like fingers tapped against the console. Raise shields. Alert all personnel to potential security situation. The station's shields hummed to life, a barely perceptible vibration through the deck plates. Alex ran standard threat assessment protocols, but the approaching ship revealed frustratingly little information. 8 minutes to intercept, Tev announced. Magnify visual, ordered Veleth. The screen zoomed in on the approaching vessel. It was utterly unremarkable except for one detail. There were no visible navigation lights or external markings of any kind, not even the mandatory safety identifiers required by both Consortium and Alliance regulations. That's unusual, Alex commented. Indeed, Veleth agreed, particularly for a ship about to dock with an official monitoring station. Sir, Garvik interjected, they're transmitting a docking request. Standard protocol, but with high-level Consortium diplomatic clearance codes. Veleth's scales shifted subtly, the saurian equivalent of a raised eyebrow. Verify. Garvik's many-fingered hands worked his console. Codes check out. They're legitimate, from 3 standard cycles ago. They've been updated since then. Outdated diplomatic codes and a completely anonymous ship, Alex mused. That's not suspicious at all. Sarcasm, Lieutenant? Veleth asked. Human conversational pattern, sir. Maintain shields. Deny docking request. Inform them their clearance is invalid and they must identify themselves immediately. Tev transmitted the message. The response was immediate and unexpected. The ship accelerated. They're increasing speed, Garvik reported unnecessarily as alarms began to sound. Impact trajectory! Evasive protocols! Veleth barked. All personnel to emergency stations. The outpost couldn't exactly dodge. It wasn't designed for mobility, but automated defensive systems began tracking the incoming vessel with point defense weapons. They're too small and too fast, Alex reported, watching the targeting system struggle to lock on. Too small, not enough propulsion. They're boarding pods. 5 cylindrical objects hurtled toward different sections of the outpost. The point defense systems managed to vaporize one, but the others impacted against the hull with precision. Breach alerts in sections 3, 7, 12, and 14, Tev reported, his normally blue skin paling to a sickly gray. Internal sensors detect multiple intruders. Commander Veleth moved with surprising speed for his size, activating the station-wide communication system. All personnel, we have hostile boarders. Security teams to breach points. All non-essential personnel to secure areas. He turned to Alex. Lieutenant, you have the command center. Lock it down, maintain communications, and coordinate our response. I'm joining the defense teams. Sir, with respect to... Alex began. This is not a discussion, Lieutenant. You're the most qualified to coordinate from here. Do your job. Without waiting for a response, Veleth headed for the door, gesturing for Garvik to follow. As the door sealed behind them, Alex turned to Tev. Activate internal security protocols. I want all compartments sealed and life support restricted to verified personnel only. Implementing, Tev confirmed, tentacles working frantically. But Lieutenant, they've already breached multiple sections. The system can't differentiate between our people and the intruders in those areas. Alex considered this for approximately 1.5 seconds. Override. Secure unbreached sections first, then we'll deal with the compromised areas. Who are these people? Tev asked, voice quavering slightly as he carried out her orders. Good question, Alex replied, accessing the internal security feeds. The cameras showed figures in sleek, form-fitting armor moving with precision through the corridors. Their helmets concealed any identifying features, but their movements spoke of professional military training. They're well-equipped, and they know exactly where they're going. How is that possible? This station's layout is classified. Apparently not classified enough. Alex watched as one group of intruders headed directly for the main computer core. Another team moved toward engineering. Textbook takeover strategy. Secure critical systems first, then deal with personnel. The station's defensive measures were proving largely ineffective. The security teams, composed of personnel from various species, weren't trained for coordinated combat against professional infiltrators. Within minutes, 3 of the 5 security checkpoints had fallen silent. We're losing, Tev stated simply, his tentacles trembling.
Not yet.
Alex countered, her mind racing. Can you isolate the command center systems from the main network? Yes, but we'll lose control of most station functions. Do it anyway. They're heading for the computer core. We can't let them access our systems once they get there. As Tev worked, Alex studied the intruders' movements more carefully. Something wasn't adding up. They were bypassing several high-value targets, including the armory and the communications array. Instead, they seemed focused on reaching specific locations with single-minded determination. They're looking for something, she murmured. Or someone. The realization hit her just as the command center's communication system crackled to life. Commander Veleth's voice came through, strained and urgent. Lieutenant Reed, the intruders are using consortium military tactics and equipment. They've taken engineering and are moving toward the... His transmission cut off abruptly. Alex glanced at the security feed showing the corridor outside the command center. 4 armored figures were approaching, moving with the efficient grace of predators. They'll be here in 30 seconds, she told Tev. Have you isolated our systems? Almost complete, he replied, appendages working frantically. But Lieutenant, once I finalize this, we won't be able to control anything outside this room. That's fine. We just need to make sure they can't control anything either. Alex moved to the weapons locker, entering her access code. The panel slid open, revealing a standard-issue particle pistol and a combat knife. She took both. Lieutenant? Tev's voice had risen an octave. I need you to hide, Alex said, checking the pistol's charge. Use the maintenance conduit behind the environmental control panel. It's cramped, but you should fit. What about you? I'll buy us some time. She nodded toward his console. Finish the isolation protocol, then hide. That's an order. Tev hesitated only briefly before complying. As he worked, Alex moved to the center of the room, pistol ready but not raised. She had no illusions about outgunning 4 professional operatives, but she needed them focused on her, not searching for Tev. The door to the command center shuddered as something impacted it from the outside. Once, twice, then a small explosion sent fragments of the locking mechanism scattering across the floor. As the smoke cleared, 4 armored figures entered, weapons trained on Alex. Just me, she said, keeping her voice steady. Everyone else evacuated to the emergency shelters. The lead intruder gestured, and 2 of his team moved to check the room's perimeter. The other remained by the door, weapon unwavering. None of them spoke. Alex watched as they efficiently searched the command center, bypassing the hidden maintenance conduit where Tev was concealed. Their movements were practiced, economical. This clearly wasn't their first boarding action. Finally, the leader approached her, helmet tilted slightly in what might have been curiosity. When he spoke, his voice was distorted by a modulator, rendering it flat and emotionless. Lieutenant Alexandra Reed, human. Alliance Special Operations, assigned to diplomatic observation duty. He paused. Interesting career trajectory. Alex kept her expression neutral. I'd say it's been eventful, especially today. Your file indicates extensive combat training, yet you chose not to resist. 4 against 1 seemed like poor odds, she replied with a casual shrug. I'm not stupid. The leader seemed to consider this. Refreshing pragmatism. Most Alliance personnel insist on feudal heroics. Sorry to disappoint. Mind telling me what this is about? You've gone to a lot of trouble for a monitoring station with outdated sensor equipment and a mediocre cafeteria. Instead of answering, the leader turned to one of his team. Secure her, then complete the primary objective. The subordinate moved forward, producing restraints from a compartment in his armor. As he reached for Alex's wrists, she allowed the pistol to slip from her fingers, clattering to the floor in apparent surrender. Smart choice, the operative said, voice similarly modulated. Not really, Alex replied. But this is... Her right hand snapped up, combat knife appearing as if from nowhere. The blade slipped precisely between the armor plates at the operative's neck, finding the flexible material beneath. A quick savage twist and he collapsed, dark fluid pooling beneath him. The other operatives reacted instantly, weapons rising. But Alex was already moving, using the falling body as both shield and counterweight. She ducked and pivoted, staying close to her first victim, making it impossible for the others to fire without risking hitting their comrade. The leader barked an order in a language Alex didn't recognize. The operative nearest her holstered his weapon and advanced, clearly intending to subdue her physically. His first strike was technically perfect, a disabling blow aimed at her solar plexus. Alex shifted, letting the punch graze her ribs instead. The impact hurt, but she used the momentum to close distance, bringing her knife up in a short, vicious arc. The blade found the seam between chestplate and arm guard, sinking deep. The operative staggered but didn't fall. Enhanced strength, Alex noted as she twisted away from his retaliatory strike. Probably cybernetic augmentation or genetic modification. That explained the unnatural precision of their movements. She feinted left, then dropped and swept her leg in a low arc, catching the wounded operative behind the knee. As he struggled to maintain balance, she drove the knife into the same spot she'd already wounded, forcing the blade deeper until something vital was severed. He collapsed with a gurgling sound that the voice modulator couldn't quite disguise. 2 down! The odds were improving. The third operative had circled behind her, while the leader maintained position near the door. They were more cautious now, having seen what she could do. The leader raised his weapon, but instead of firing, he tapped something on his wrist console. A high-pitched tone filled the room, so intense that Alex felt it more than heard it. Her vision blurred momentarily, equilibrium faltering. Some kind of sonic weapon calibrated to human physiology. She stumbled, fighting to stay upright as her inner ear rebelled. The third operative saw his opportunity and rushed her, confident in her disorientation. It was a miscalculation. Alex had spent months training with Dravidi crewmates whose natural vocalizations operated at frequencies that played havoc with human sensory systems. She'd learned to function through worse discomfort than this. As the operative reached for her, she let herself fall backward, using his momentum against him. Her knife found the underside of his jaw, penetrating upward where the helmet met the neck guard. The blade sank to the hilt, and the operative collapsed on top of her, suddenly dead weight. Alex rolled, shoving the body aside, and scrambled to her feet. The sonic attack had stopped, probably to avoid affecting the leader's own operative. Now it was one-on-one. The leader regarded her through his inscrutable helmet. "Impressive," he said, the voice modulator failing to hide a note of genuine surprise. "Your file understated your capabilities." Alex didn't waste breath responding. She was breathing hard, blood, both hers and not hers, soaking her uniform. The knife felt slippery in her grasp, but she maintained her grip. "Unfortunate that we must be adversaries," the leader continued, making no move to attack. "My employer values individuals with your particular talents." "Let me guess," Alex said between breaths. "The Consortium's Deniable Operations Division, or maybe one of the splinter factions? You're a bit too professional for ordinary mercenaries." The leader tilted his head slightly. "Perceptive, but ultimately irrelevant. Your station has something we need. The monitoring data?" "It's nothing you couldn't get from your own observation posts." "Not data," he corrected. "A person." Alex's mind raced through the personnel roster. Who on this unremarkable outpost could be valuable enough to justify this level of operation? The leader must have read her confusion. "You really don't know." "Interesting. Your commanders keep their secrets well. Why don't you enlighten me?" Alex suggested, using the conversation to catch her breath and assess the situation. The leader still held his weapon, but seemed in no hurry to use it. Either he was confident in his abilities, or he had orders to take her alive. "I think not," he replied. "But I will offer you a choice. Join us willingly, and your colleagues will be spared. Resist, and we eliminate the entire crew before departing." "Join you? I don't even know who you are." "Someone who recognizes your value better than the Alliance ever did. Why else would an operative with your qualifications be wasting away on a backwater monitoring station?" Alex didn't answer immediately. The leader was trying to manipulate her, but there was an uncomfortable grain of truth in his words. Her assignment to Sigma-19 had come after she'd questioned certain Alliance military actions in the previous border conflict. "I need a better offer than vague promises and thinly veiled threats," she said finally. The leader holstered his weapon, a calculated show of confidence. "Then let me be direct. You're wasted here. Your skills, your potential, the Alliance fears them. That's why you've been sidelined, watching sensor screens instead of making a difference. We're offering purpose, direction, the chance to be what you were trained to be. And all I have to do is betray everyone on this station? Think of it as liberation. From mediocrity. From constraints imposed by bureaucrats who never see the front lines." He extended a gloved hand. "Your decision, Lieutenant Reed, but make it quickly. My patience has limits." Alex glanced down at the knife in her hand, then back at the leader. "You make a compelling argument," she admitted, lowering the blade slightly. "But there's one problem with your offer. And that is? I actually like my colleagues." Alex lunged forward, not at the leader, but at the environmental control panel behind him. The knife plunged into the circuitry, sending sparks flying. Instantly, the room's emergency protocols activated, bathing everything in pulsing red light as alarms blared. The leader reacted with inhuman speed, drawing his weapon and firing in one fluid motion. Alex felt something punch through her left shoulder, hot pain blooming outward. She staggered but didn't fall, using the momentum to spin behind the nearest console. "A futile gesture," the leader called over the alarms. Your distress signal won't reach anyone in time. Wasn't going for a distress signal, Alex replied, pressing her right hand against the wound to stem the bleeding. Just needed to trigger the environmental controls. As if on cue, the ventilation system roared to life at maximum capacity. The sudden air movement created a pressure differential that sent loose objects tumbling across the room. More importantly, it cleared the thin haze of blood and discharge particles that had been floating in the air since the fight began. The leader had maintained position near the door, weapon trained in her general direction but unable to target her directly behind the console. What he couldn't see was that Alex had positioned herself near the manual override for the command center's atmospheric cycling system. With her good arm, she reached up and pulled the emergency lever. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The room's atmosphere began venting into space through emergency purge valves, designed to prevent the spread of fire or contaminants to other sections of the station. The explosive decompression created a howling wind as air rushed toward the ceiling vents. The leader staggered, caught off guard by the sudden vacuum. His armor protected him from the immediate effects, but he wasn't anchored to anything. As the air evacuated, he began to lift off the ground, tumbling toward the vents. Alex had anticipated this. She'd hooked her legs around the base of the console, using it as an anchor against the pull. The pain in her shoulder was excruciating, but she held on, watching as the leader scrambled for purchase on the smooth floor. He managed to magnetize his boots, a standard feature in most combat armor, just before he would have been sucked into the narrowing vents. Now stable, he turned his weapon toward Alex again, only to find she'd used the distraction to retrieve one of the fallen operative's guns. Their shots crossed in the increasingly thin air. The leader's beam scored a glancing hit across Alex's right thigh, searing through fabric and skin. Her shot caught him in the center of his chest plate, the impact knocking him back despite his magnetic boots. The armor held, but the force was enough to disrupt his stance. As he struggled to regain balance, Alex fired again, aiming for the same spot. The second shot cracked the chest plate. The third punched through. The leader dropped to one knee, dark fluid leaking from the compromised armor. His helmet tilted up to look at Alex, who had somehow maintained her position despite her injuries and the chaotic environment. Impossible, the modulated voice rasped. Human, Alex corrected and fired one final shot. The atmosphere was nearly gone now, the alarm silent in the vacuum. Alex's vision was darkening at the edges. She had perhaps 30 seconds of useful consciousness left. With enormous effort, she dragged herself to the environmental controls and reversed the venting process. As air began to flow back into the room, she collapsed against the console, breathing in desperate, painful gasps. Her wounds throbbed in time with her heartbeat, but the returning pressure helped slow the bleeding. When she could think clearly again, she looked around the command center. 4 bodies in advanced tactical armor lay scattered across the floor. The fight had lasted less than 3 minutes from start to finish. With trembling fingers, she activated her communicator. This is Lieutenant Reed in the command center. Intruders neutralized. Need medical assistance and security team. Static answered her. The communication system must have been damaged in the fight. With a groan, she pulled herself toward Tev's hiding place. You can come out, she called hoarsely. It's over. The panel shifted and Tev emerged cautiously, his tentacles coiling in distress as he surveyed the carnage. Lieutenant, you're injured. Astute observation, Alex replied, managing a weak smile. Think you can restore communications? We need to warn the rest of the station. Tev moved to his console, working quickly. Systems coming back online. Internal sensors show fighting in multiple sections, but the intruders appear to be retreating. They lost their leader, Alex said, gesturing weakly at the armored figure by the door. Probably disrupted their command structure. How did you... Tev began, then shook his head. Never mind. I'm patching through to security teams now. As Tev coordinated the station's response, Alex dragged herself to the fallen leader. With painful slowness, she removed his helmet, curious about who had led such a precisely executed operation. The face beneath was vaguely humanoid but distinctly alien, scaled skin in a deep indigo, with implants visibly integrated into the skull and jaw. Species unknown, at least to her. Lieutenant, Tev called. Commander Veleth is on his way with a medical team. He says the intruders are withdrawing to their ship. Good, Alex replied, fighting to stay conscious. Make sure defense systems target their vessel once it detaches. Don't let them escape. Already done. You should stop moving. You're losing a lot of blood. Alex nodded, then immediately regretted it as dizziness overwhelmed her. She slumped against the nearest console, focusing on breathing through the pain. By the time Commander Veleth arrived with the medical team, Alex was barely conscious. She was vaguely aware of being lifted onto a stretcher, of urgent voices discussing plasma loss and tissue damage. Lieutenant, Veleth's voice cut through the haze. Can you hear me? She managed, forcing her eyes open. Did we win? Thanks to you, yes.
Their ship disengaged but was disabled by defense systems before it could jump to FTL.
We've taken prisoners from the boarding parties.
Good, she murmured.
They were after someone specific. Find out who. Veleth's scaled face showed an emotion she couldn't quite identify. We will discuss that when you're recovered. For now, rest. As the medical team carried her toward the infirmary, Alex caught fragments of conversation between station personnel they passed. 4 of them in less than 3 minutes. Atmosphere venting procedure as a weapon. Never seen anything like it. She drifted in and out of consciousness during treatment, vaguely aware of the medical technicians working on her wounds. Their voices seemed to come from very far away. Lucky the energy beam cauterized as it penetrated. Remarkable pain threshold for a mammalian species. Accelerated healing factor compared to baseline humans. When Alex finally regained full awareness, she was in the medical bay, various monitoring devices attached to her body. Her shoulder and leg were encased in regeneration fields, the wounds already partly healed thanks to advanced medical technology. Commander Veleth sat beside her bed, reviewing data on a tablet. He looked up as she stirred. "Welcome back, Lieutenant. How do you feel?" "Like I've been shot, sir," she replied, voice raspy from disuse. "How long was I out?" 26 hours. The medical team kept you sedated to accelerate healing. Alex attempted to sit up, wincing as her injuries protested. "Casualties? 7 dead, 14 wounded. It would have been much worse without your actions." Veleth set aside his tablet. The intruders were professionals, ex-consortium special forces, according to preliminary identification. "They wanted someone from the station," Alex said. "Any idea who?" Veleth's expression turned grave. "Yes, you. That was unexpected." Alex blinked slowly, trying to process this information. "Me? Why?" "That's what I was hoping you could tell me." Veleth leaned forward. "Your personnel file lists you as a standard Alliance officer with tactical training. Nothing that would warrant this level of interest from elite operatives." "That's all I am," Alex insisted. "A slightly overqualified sensor technician who got lucky against better-armed opponents." "Lieutenant Reed," Veleth said slowly. "I've reviewed the security footage from the command center. What you did wasn't luck. It was extraordinary, even for a human with combat training." Alex didn't respond immediately. The truth was, she'd surprised herself with how effectively she'd dispatched the intruders. Her training had certainly prepared her for combat situations, but the calm, clinical efficiency she'd displayed went beyond standard Alliance protocols. "I served on the Martian frontier before this assignment," she said finally. "Things get rough out there. You adapt or you die." Veleth studied her with unnerving intensity. "Perhaps. But there's more to this situation than either of us knows." He handed her the tablet. "We captured their ship's navigational data. They came directly from a blacklisted system, one that doesn't appear on official star charts." Alex scrolled through the data, recognition dawning. "The Helix Nebula quarantine zone? Nobody goes there." "Somebody does," Veleth corrected. "And they're very interested in you." Before Alex could respond, the medical bay door slid open. Kstvac entered, looking uncharacteristically subdued. His normally pristine carapace was scuffed and dented in several places, evidence that he'd been involved in the fighting. "Lieutenant Reed," he said, mandibles parting slightly. "The medical officer said you were awake. I came to—" He hesitated, antennae twitching. "To thank you. Your warning gave many of us time to prepare. I might not have survived otherwise." "You're welcome," Alex replied, genuinely surprised by the gesture. "Looks like you held your own." "I did what was necessary," Kstvac said stiffly. "Though I admit, my assessment of human combat—" "Are you saying we're not just glorified meat sacks, after all?" "I'm saying that appearances can be deceiving." Kstvac's compound eyes gleamed with something that might have been respect. 4 armed operatives in under 3 minutes is impressive by any species standards. "Don't spread that around," Alex joked weakly. "I'll lose my reputation as a harmless sensor jockey." "Too late," said Dralzen, appearing in the doorway behind Kstvac. "The entire station is talking about it. It's quite notable in my native language." Commander Veleth stood. "Lieutenant Reed needs rest. You can exchange stories later." The others nodded and departed, leaving Alex alone with her thoughts and the steady hum of medical equipment. She stared at the ceiling, turning over the implications of Veleth's revelation. Why would special operators from a quarantined system target her specifically? The door slid open again. Alex expected another well-wisher, but instead, a figure in nondescript civilian clothing entered. Human, male, with the bland, forgettable features of someone deliberately trained to blend in. "Lieutenant Alexandra Reed," he said without preamble. I'm Agent Mercer, Alliance Intelligence. Alex tensed despite her injuries. Intelligence operatives appearing unannounced was rarely good news. Should Commander Veleth be present for this conversation? This is strictly human business, Mercer replied, activating a small device that emitted a low hum. Privacy field. We can speak freely. About what exactly? Mercer pulled up a chair. About why a Helix operative strike team was willing to risk an international incident to acquire you. I was hoping you could tell me that, Alex said cautiously. I know exactly why, Mercer countered. And so do you, on some level, even if you can't access those memories yet. A cold feeling settled in Alex's stomach. What are you talking about? Project Chimera, Mercer said simply. Ring any bells? It didn't, yet something about the name sent an involuntary shiver down Alex's spine. Should it? Probably not, given the thoroughness of the memory suppression protocols. Mercer studied her with clinical detachment. You're not just an Alliance officer, Lieutenant. You're a prototype, the only successful subject from the third phase of the Chimera program. Alex stared at him, searching for any sign that this was some elaborate joke. That's ridiculous. I have a complete service history. A family. I remember my childhood on Earth. Implanted memories based on a real person. The real Alexandra Reed died 2 years ago in a shuttle accident. Her identity was the perfect cover for introducing you into standard Alliance operations. The medical monitors began beeping more rapidly as Alex's heart rate increased. You're lying. Your performance against the boarding party proves otherwise, Mercer said calmly. 4 enhanced operatives, dispatched with minimal weapons in under 3 minutes, functioning through injuries that would incapacitate most humans, adapting tactics on the fly against superior technology. Those aren't skills from frontier service, Lieutenant. They're coded responses, combat algorithms integrated with enhanced physical capabilities. Alex shook her head, ignoring the pain that radiated through her shoulder. This is insane. I have memories. Friends. I remember the academy, my first posting. All authentic experiences, Mercer interrupted. We didn't create you from nothing. The program used volunteers, the best of the best, and enhanced them. Your baseline personality is real. Your memories of the past 2 years are real. It's the background that was constructed to maintain operational security. If what you're saying is true, Alex said slowly, fighting to keep her voice steady. Why tell me now? Why compromise this operation? Mercer's expression turned grim. Because the Helix operatives finding you changes everything. The program was classified beyond top secret. No one outside a handful of Alliance intelligence personnel should have known you exist. He leaned forward. Someone leaked information, and we need to know who. Alex stared at her hands, familiar hands that had moved with impossible speed and precision during the fight. Hands that had killed 4 enhanced operatives with clinical efficiency. Let's say I believe you, she said finally. What happens now? Now you help us find the leak. Your enhanced capabilities make you the perfect investigator. You can go places and do things my regular agents can't. And if I refuse? Mercer's smile didn't reach his eyes. You won't. Not once the suppression protocols are lifted and you remember what you really are. He removed a small injector from his pocket. This will begin the process of restoring your complete operational memory. Alex eyed the device warily. And I'm just supposed to trust you? A stranger claiming my entire identity is fabricated? Trust your instincts, Lieutenant. Your combat performance wasn't luck or training. It was muscle memory, your body remembering what your mind cannot. Mercer held out the injector. Take this and you'll understand. She didn't reach for it. What about my post here, my colleagues? Your cover remains intact. As far as Commander Veleth and the others are concerned, you're a heroic officer who helped repel an attack. We'll manufacture orders transferring you temporarily for specialized medical treatment following your injuries. By the time you return, this incident will be old news. Alex closed her eyes, trying to process everything. Her mind felt oddly divided. Part of her rejected Mercer's claims as absurd, while another part recognized a ring of truth in his words. The way she'd fought. The clinical detachment she'd felt while taking lives. That hadn't felt like training. It had felt like instinct. I need time to think, she said finally. We don't have time, Mercer countered. The Helix operatives will report back to their superiors. They'll analyze what happened, adapt their approach, and try again. Next time they'll send more than just a strike team. Why do they want me so badly? Because you represent a breakthrough they've been trying to replicate for decades. Mercer's tone turned almost respectful. The perfect integration of enhanced human capability without the psychological instability that plagued previous attempts. You're valuable, Lieutenant. To us and to them.
Alex stared at the ceiling, feeling the weight of decisions she never asked to make. If Mercer was telling the truth, her entire understanding of herself was built on fabrications. If he was lying, what could his motive possibly be? The injector, she said abruptly. What exactly does it contain? A neurochemical key that will unlock the suppressed memories. The process takes approximately 12 hours. It's not entirely comfortable, but it's necessary. And these memories will prove what you're saying? They'll do more than that, Mercer replied. They'll remind you why you volunteered for the program in the first place. That gave her pause. I volunteered? All subjects did. The process doesn't work otherwise. The mind rejects the enhancements if they're forced. Mercer leaned forward. You had reasons, Lieutenant. Good ones. The memories will help you remember what they were. Alex took a deep breath. Decision made. Fine, but not here. If what you're saying is true, I don't want to be surrounded by people when these memories start returning. Mercer nodded. A transport is waiting to take us to a secure facility. We can leave as soon as you're cleared by medical. I need to speak with Commander Veleth first. I owe him that much. Of course, the cover story has already been arranged. Mercer stood, pocketing the injector. 1 hour, Lieutenant. Then we go, with or without your commander's blessing. After Mercer left, Alex lay staring at the ceiling, trying to reconcile what she'd just learned with everything she believed about herself. Was it possible? Could her entire history be an elaborate construction? And if so, who was she really? The door slid open again, and Commander Veleth entered, looking troubled. Lieutenant, he began. I've received orders from Alliance Command regarding your transfer for specialized treatment. They were unusually insistent. Yes, sir, Alex replied carefully. Agent Mercer explained the situation. Veleth's eyes narrowed. Did he? Because these orders bypassed standard protocols and came with classification levels I've never seen before. The attack has raised security concerns, Alex improvised. Intelligence believes I may have been specifically targeted based on previous assignments. Previous assignments that aren't in your personnel file? Veleth didn't sound convinced. Lieutenant, if you're involved in something that puts my station at risk, I need to know. Alex met his gaze steadily. Sir, I can only tell you that I'm following orders, and that my temporary transfer is in everyone's best interest, including yours. Veleth studied her for a long moment. You know, when I requested a human officer for this post, I specifically asked for someone unremarkable. Someone who wouldn't attract attention or create diplomatic incidents. His mandibles twitched in what might have been amusement. I believe I may have received the exact opposite. Despite everything, Alex smiled. Sorry to disappoint, sir. On the contrary, Veleth replied. You've proven more valuable than I anticipated. Just be careful, Lieutenant. Intelligence operations rarely end well for the operatives involved. I'll bear that in mind, sir. Veleth nodded, then turned to leave. At the door he paused. By the way, Kustvac has started a rather ridiculous rumor that humans are actually apex predators who have been deceiving the galactic community about their capabilities. I thought you should know. You should. After he left, Alex allowed herself a small, pained laugh. The irony wasn't lost on her. She might have been deceiving herself about who and what she was all along. An hour later, dressed in a fresh uniform that did little to hide her injuries, Alex made her way to the shuttle bay. The corridors were busier than usual as repair teams worked to fix damage from the attack. Several crew members stopped to thank her or offer good wishes for her recovery. Each interaction felt strangely distant, as if she were already detaching from her life at the outpost. Mercer was waiting at the shuttle, along with 2 nondescript human security personnel who were trying very hard to look like ordinary transport crew. Ready? He asked as she approached. Not really, Alex admitted, but I don't see that I have much choice. The shuttle was small but well-appointed, clearly designed for transporting VIPs rather than standard personnel. As they prepared for departure, Alex gazed out the viewport at Outpost Sigma-19. For better or worse, her time there was finished. Whatever came next would redefine everything. Once they cleared the outpost and entered open space, Mercer approached with the injector. We should begin the process now, he said. That way, the initial phase will be complete by the time we reach the facility. Alex eyed the device warily. What exactly should I expect? Disorientation at first, then fragmented memories, images, sensations, conversations out of context. By the 12-hour mark, your suppressed memories will have integrated with your conscious mind. Mercer's expression softened slightly. It won't be pleasant, but my team will monitor you throughout. Your team, Alex repeated. The same people who apparently erased my real identity and replaced it with a cover story? The same people who helped you become something extraordinary, Mercer countered. Remember that perspective when the memories return. With reluctance, Alex extended her arm. Mercer pressed the injector against her skin, and she felt a brief sting as the contents entered her bloodstream. "How long until—" she began, but the question died as a wave of dizziness washed over her. The shuttle cabin seemed to waver, colors intensifying then fading. Sounds became distant, echoing strangely. "It begins," Mercer said, his voice distorted as if traveling through water. "Try to relax, Lieutenant. Fighting it only makes the transition more difficult." Alex closed her eyes, feeling as if she were falling despite being seated. Behind her eyelids, images flashed, too quick to grasp at first, then slowing enough to recognize fragments. A sterile laboratory, machines humming, pain coursing through every nerve ending. A woman in a white coat speaking calmly. "The integration is proceeding as expected. Cognitive functions remain stable. Training simulations, moving faster than should be possible. Calculating trajectories, reaction times, probabilities, all simultaneously. A mirror, her face, but somehow not her face. Newer, unfamiliar. Wrong," she gasped, eyes flying open. Mercer watched her with clinical interest, making notes on a small device. "The first wave is always the most disorienting," he said. "The memories lack context at this stage. That will improve as the process continues." "Those weren't memories," Alex insisted, her voice shaking. "They were fragments, hallucinations." "They were your experiences during the integration phase of the program," Mercer corrected. "Your consciousness is reconnecting with events it was conditioned to forget." Before she could argue further, another wave hit, stronger than the first. This time the images came with sounds, sensations, emotions, all tangled together in a chaotic jumble. A voice, authoritative but kind. "Subject demonstrates exceptional adaptation to the neural enhancements. Recommend accelerated combat training. Sparring with opponents who moved like blurs. Matching them. Exceeding them." Feeling a strange exhilaration at capabilities that shouldn't be possible. A conversation. "The cover identity is almost ready. Final neural imprinting scheduled for 0600 tomorrow." Fear. Resignation. Determination. Purpose. Alex came back to herself with a gasp, sweat beading on her forehead despite the shuttle's climate control. The memories, if that's what they were, felt alien, disconnected from her sense of self. Yet they also carried an undeniable familiarity, like rediscovering a forgotten language. "You were a volunteer," Mercer said quietly, observing her reactions. "One of our best operatives before the program. You understood the risks and the potential rewards." "Why?" Alex managed, fighting through the disorientation. "Why would I agree to have my identity erased? Because you believed in the mission. Because you understood what was at stake." Mercer's expression turned solemn. "And because you had nothing left to lose." Before she could question him further, the most intense wave yet crashed over her consciousness. This time, the memories weren't fragmented but cohesive, playing like recordings in perfect clarity. A briefing room, officers in unmarked uniforms. A holographic display showing star systems, troop movements, threat assessments. "The consortium has developed a new class of enhanced operatives. Stronger, faster, more durable than standard troops. Our conventional forces can't match them in direct combat." A senior officer grim-faced. "Project Chimera is our answer. Human enhancement without the psychological instability of previous programs. The perfect integration of advanced capabilities with tactical judgment and ethical constraints." Her own voice, steady and determined. "I understand the procedure is experimental. The risks are acceptable given the strategic implications." A woman, a doctor, explaining clinically. "The neural architecture requires a clean slate. Your existing memories will be suppressed, and a cover identity implanted. In essence, you will become someone else until the program is activated." Her response calm despite the implications. "How long will I be under deep cover?" "Indefinitely. Perhaps years. The Alliance needs to assess the long-term stability of the enhancements before deploying more subjects." "And if something goes wrong? If the enhancements fail or the cover identity becomes compromised?" A pause. "Then Protocol Omega will be initiated. The program will be terminated, along with the subject." Alex jerked back to awareness, a scream caught in her throat. Her heart raced, the medical monitors on her wounded shoulder beeping in alarm. One of Mercer's security personnel approached with concern, but he waved them away. "What you're experiencing is normal," he assured her. "The memory integration accelerates as the process continues." "Protocol Omega," Alex gasped. "You were going to kill me if the program failed." Mercer didn't deny it. "A necessary precaution. The enhancements are too valuable to risk falling into enemy hands." He studied her reactions carefully. "But the program didn't fail. You're proof of that. And now what?" Alex demanded, struggling to maintain composure, as her mind filled with information that contradicted everything she believed about herself. "You activate me like some kind of weapon? Point me at targets and let me loose? Now you fulfill the purpose you volunteered for, Mercer replied evenly. You help us identify who leaked information about Project Chimera to the Helix operatives. You help us protect other subjects in the program. He leaned closer. And yes, when necessary, you serve as the weapon you were designed to be. Another wave of memories hit before she could respond.
A laboratory, different from the first. More advanced equipment.
Her body suspended in a tank of clear fluid. Electrodes attached to her temples, spine, major muscle groups. Pain beyond description as her cells were restructured at the molecular level.
Enhanced muscle density. Reinforced skeletal structure. Accelerated neural pathways. Hours of psychological conditioning. Combat simulations. Stress testing.
Pushing beyond normal human limitations again and again until the extraordinary became routine.
The final briefing before deployment. A stern-faced woman, Director Harlow, explaining her mission. You'll be assigned to Outpost Sigma 19.
It's remote, understaffed, and perfectly positioned for us to monitor your progress without interference. Your cover identity as Lieutenant Alexandra Reed is complete in every detail.
You will have no conscious knowledge of your true nature or capabilities unless activated by an authorized handler.
And my mission parameters, Director?
Observe, adapt, maintain cover.
We need to confirm long-term stability before proceeding with the next phase.
And if I'm compromised? Then you'll be extracted or eliminated depending on circumstances. But that won't happen if you follow protocols. A final question.
Will I ever remember who I really am? Only if it becomes necessary. The cover identity is more effective if you believe it completely.
When Alex emerged from this memory, she found herself on the floor of the shuttle, Mercer kneeling beside her with a medical scanner.
Your vitals are spiking, he said with professional concern. The integration is proceeding faster than anticipated. You people... Alex struggled to form coherent thoughts as past and present collided in her mind.
You took everything from me. My identity. My choices.
We gave you purpose, Mercer corrected, and capabilities beyond anything a normal human could achieve. The Alexandra Reed identity was never meant to be permanent. Just a shell to protect you while we confirmed the enhancements were stable.
And now that shell is broken, Alex said bitterly.
So what happens to Alexandra Reed? Does she just disappear?
Mercer helped her back to her seat. That depends entirely on you.
Some subjects choose to maintain aspects of their cover identities after activation. Others prefer to embrace their enhanced nature fully. His expression turned calculating. But first we need to deal with the Helix operatives, and whoever gave them information about you. The final wave of memories hit with the force of a physical blow. This time Alex didn't just remember, she understood. Her true name, her real history. The reasons she had volunteered for a program that would erase her identity and transform her into something beyond human. The war that was coming, not the border skirmishes and diplomatic posturing the public knew about, but the real conflict brewing beneath the surface. The consortium's research into technologies that could shift the balance of power permanently. The Alliance's desperate countermeasures. Her role as not just a soldier, but a prototype. The first of what would become an elite force capable of operating independently in high-threat environments. Chimera operatives would be the Alliance's answer to the consortium's technological advantage. And finally, her own personal motivation, the reason she had volunteered when others had declined. The loss that had left her with nothing to lose, as Mercer had put it. When she opened her eyes this time, Alex, or whoever she now was, felt different. Centered. The confusion and disorientation had given way to clarity. She remembered everything. Both her constructed life as Lieutenant Alexandra Reed and her true history before the program. There you are, Mercer said, recognizing the change in her demeanor. Welcome back, Major. That's not my name anymore, she replied, her voice steady. Not after 2 years as someone else. Then who are you? She considered the question carefully. The woman she had been before Project Chimera was gone, transformed both physically and psychologically. Lieutenant Reed was a fiction, a carefully crafted cover identity. The truth lay somewhere between. For now, Alex Reed will do, she decided. Until I figure out exactly what I've become. Mercer nodded, seemingly satisfied. The integration appears complete. Remarkably smooth, considering the circumstances. He checked his monitoring device. How do you feel? Like I'm two people occupying the same body, she admitted. But the pieces are fitting together. The gaps are filling in. She fixed him with a penetrating stare. Now, tell me about the leak. Who knew enough about Project Chimera to direct the Helix operatives to Sigma 19? That's what we need to determine, Mercer replied. Only 7 people had access to your location and status. One of them betrayed us, and you.
Director Harlow? She's the obvious suspect given her oversight role, but there are others.
Dr. Keller, who designed the enhancement protocols. Colonel Vega, who ran operational security. The list is short but distinguished. Alex processed this information, analyzing it with the enhanced cognitive capabilities she now recognized as part of her transformation. The Helix operatives were too well prepared for a last-minute operation. They had detailed knowledge of Sigma-19's layout, security protocols, and defensive capabilities.
That suggests long-term planning. Agreed, said Mercer. The question is why now? You've been stationed at Sigma-19 for almost a year without incident.
A memory surfaced, not from her suppressed past, but from her time at the outpost. The inspection team, she said suddenly.
3 weeks ago, a consortium delegation visited the station as part of the treaty verification process. They were mapping sensor coverage patterns. Standard procedure for neutral monitoring stations, Mercer noted.
Yes, but one of the delegates, a technical specialist, requested a tour of areas not included in the standard inspection route. Commander Veleth denied the request, but the specialist was unusually insistent.
You think they were looking for you specifically?
I think they were confirming my presence before committing resources to an extraction operation, Alex replied.
Which means the leak happened recently. Someone told them where to find me within the past month.
Mercer made notes on his device. This is valuable intelligence. Once we reach the facility, we'll begin a full investigation. He studied her with renewed interest. Your cognitive enhancement is functioning at optimal levels despite the traumatic activation. Impressive. Don't sound so pleased with yourself, Alex said coldly. I still haven't decided how I feel about having my identity erased and replaced with a fiction. You made that choice voluntarily, Mercer reminded her, and the Alexandra Reed identity served its purpose. It protected you while we confirmed the enhancements were stable. And now that they've been confirmed, what happens to me? That depends on the outcome of our investigation. If we can identify and neutralize the leak, you'll be the first of a new generation of enhanced operatives. Your experience will help us refine the program for future subjects. And if we can't? Mercer's expression turned grim.
Then Protocol Omega remains a possibility. The program is too valuable to risk exposure.
Alex's enhanced mind calculated various scenarios, threat assessments, probabilities, all automatically, without conscious effort. She could take control of the shuttle if necessary, neutralize Mercer and his security team, disappear before the Alliance could implement Protocol Omega. But to what end? She might escape immediate termination, but she'd be hunted by both the Alliance and the Consortium. And without access to the specialized medical support her enhanced body required, she'd eventually face system breakdown. I'll help you find the leak, she decided. Not because I've forgiven what was done to me, but because it's the logical course of action. She fixed Mercer with a steady gaze. But understand this, I'm not the same person who volunteered for Project Chimera. My experiences as Alexandra Reed have changed me in ways your scientists probably didn't anticipate. Meaning I make my own choices now. I'll cooperate with the investigation, but I won't be a weapon pointed at whatever targets you designate, not without convincing me they deserve it. Mercer looked like he wanted to argue, but apparently thought better of it. Fair enough. We can discuss your future role once the immediate crisis is resolved. The rest of the journey passed in relative silence. Alex used the time to integrate her recovered memories with her experiences from the past 2 years. The process was disorienting, but not as traumatic as the initial flood of activation. By the time the shuttle began its descent toward a nondescript facility on a small moon, she had achieved a fragile equilibrium between her past and present selves. The facility was unmarked, its architecture deliberately forgettable, the kind of place designed to avoid attention rather than repel it. As they disembarked, Alex noted the subtle security measures, concealed weapon emplacements, atmospheric sensors, subdermal scanner arrays disguised as architectural elements. Whoever had designed the security system knew their business. Welcome to Echo Base, Mercer said as they passed through a series of secure doors. One of our more discreet research facilities. How many others like me are here? Alex asked, sensing the answer before he spoke. None currently. You're the only Chimera subject to achieve complete integration without psychological breakdown. Mercer's tone held a hint of pride, as if her success was primarily his achievement. The others are still in early development stages, using the data gathered from your deployment. They entered a conference room where 3 people waited. An older woman with steel-gray hair and the bearing of a career officer, a middle-aged man with a scientist's distracted gaze, and a younger woman whose perfect posture and watchful eyes marked her as security. Director Harlow, Mercer announced. Subject Reed has been successfully reactivated with full memory integration. I can see that. the older woman replied, studying Alex with analytical intensity. Major, it's good to have you back with us. It's Lieutenant Reed now, Alex corrected firmly. Or just Alex, if you prefer. Harlow's expression tightened slightly. As you wish, Lieutenant. I understand the transition can be disorienting. Disorienting is one word for it. Alex glanced at the others. Dr. Keller, I presume, and Colonel Vega? The scientist nodded, clearly intrigued by her recognition. Your memory function appears intact despite the traumatic activation. Fascinating. Don't look so surprised, Doctor. Your modifications worked exactly as designed. Alex turned her attention to the younger woman. Colonel Vega, you're looking well. As are you, Lieutenant, Vega replied neutrally, especially considering recent events. Let's dispense with pleasantries, Director Harlow interrupted. We have a serious security breach to address. Someone in this program provided classified information to the Helix operatives, resulting in the attack on Outpost Sigma-19 and nearly compromising our only successful Phase 3 subject. Nearly? Alex raised an eyebrow. I'd say the compromise is pretty complete at this point. Your cover identity was compromised, Harlow clarified, but you eliminated the extraction team and maintained operational security regarding Project Chimera. The damage, while serious, is containable. Alex considered this. The operatives knew exactly where to find me, but they didn't seem to know what I was capable of. Their leader was surprised by my combat effectiveness, suggesting the leak provided your location but not complete details of your enhancements, Dr. Keller mused. Interesting. Or they knew and chose not to brief the strike team fully, Colonel Vega suggested. Operational compartmentalization is standard practice for Helix deployments. Alex studied each of them in turn, her enhanced senses detecting subtle physiological responses, changes in breathing patterns, pupil dilation, micro-expressions. One of these people had betrayed her, had nearly gotten her killed or captured. The question was, which one? I need access to all files related to Project Chimera, she said. Personnel records, communication logs, security protocols, everything. That's highly classified information, Harlow objected. Even with your status, you don't have clearance for all aspects of the program. You've lost the right to restrict my access, Alex replied coldly. Someone in this room may have betrayed me. Until I know who, I trust none of you. Mercer intervened before Harlow could respond. The lieutenant's enhanced analytical capabilities make her our best asset for identifying the leak. I recommend we grant temporary access, under supervision. A tense silence followed before Harlow finally nodded. Authorized, but all research remains on secure terminals within this facility. Fine, Alex agreed. I'll start immediately. After medical evaluation, Dr. Keller interjected. Your enhancements need assessment following combat stress and the uncontrolled reactivation process. Alex wanted to object, but she recognized the logic. Her body had been through significant trauma, and the enhancements might require adjustment. 4 hours for medical evaluation. Then I begin the investigation. Acceptable, Harlow agreed. Dr. Keller will oversee your assessment personally. The medical evaluation was thorough but efficient. Dr. Keller's professional curiosity was evident as he monitored her enhanced physiology, occasionally muttering notes to himself or asking clinical questions about her experience during the fight at Sigma-19. Remarkable, he said, reviewing a neural scan. The integration is more complete than our models predicted. Your cognitive enhancement is operating at 143% of projected capacity. Meaning? Meaning you've adapted to the modifications better than anticipated. Your brain has created new neural pathways to optimize the enhancements. He looked genuinely impressed. You've evolved beyond our design parameters. Is that good or bad from your perspective, Doctor? Keller considered the question. Scientifically fascinating. Operationally, potentially concerning. Enhanced subjects who exceed design parameters have historically demonstrated increased independence and reduced compliance. You mean they start thinking for themselves instead of following orders blindly? Alex translated. More or less, Keller admitted, though previous cases involved significant psychological instability alongside the increased autonomy. And me? Am I unstable, Doctor? Keller studied his readings. On the contrary, your psychological metrics show remarkable balance despite the trauma of reactivation. You've integrated your original identity with the Alexandra Reed persona more successfully than we would have predicted. Because they're both me, Alex said simply. Different experiences shaping the same core person. A surprisingly philosophical perspective, Keller noted. Most subjects experience severe identity conflict during reintegration. I don't have time for an identity crisis, Alex replied. There's a traitor to find. After the medical evaluation, Alex was escorted to a secure data center where she could begin reviewing Project Chimera files. The amount of information was staggering. Thousands of documents detailing everything from the initial research to the operational deployments of various test subjects. Her enhanced cognitive processing made the task manageable, allowing her to absorb and analyze information at several times human capacity. Even so, it took hours to establish a basic understanding of the program's structure and personnel. What emerged was disturbing. Project Chimera had begun 10 years earlier as a defensive response to rumors of consortium enhancement programs. The early phases had produced operatives with incredible physical capabilities, but severe psychological instability. Most had been terminated when they became uncontrollable. Phase 3 had represented a breakthrough, a new approach that integrated enhancements more harmoniously with the subject's existing neural architecture. But even this improved method had produced a high failure rate. Of 12 volunteers, 11 had experienced catastrophic psychological breakdown during integration. Only she had succeeded, her mind and body accepting the modifications without rejection. The reports didn't explain why she had survived when others hadn't, though several theories were proposed. More concerning were the security protocols. Director Harlow had implemented a system of rotating access codes and compartmentalized information. No single person except Harlow herself should have had access to all aspects of the program. Yet someone had obtained enough information to target Alex specifically. After 18 hours of continuous research, interrupted only by brief meals and medical monitoring, Alex had narrowed the possibilities. The leak had to be someone with access to both her location and at least partial knowledge of her capabilities. That limited the suspects to those directly involved in her case: Harlow, Keller, Vega, and Mercer. She was reviewing communication logs when Mercer entered the data center. "Any progress?" he asked, setting down a fresh cup of coffee beside her. "Some," Alex replied noncommittally. "The security protocols were well designed. Whoever leaked my information had to deliberately circumvent multiple safeguards." "Suggesting premeditation rather than opportunism," Mercer observed. "Exactly." Alex took a sip of coffee, studying him over the rim of the cup. "Why did you come for me personally? The Alliance has other operatives who could have handled my extraction from Sigma-19. "I was your handler before deployment," Mercer reminded her. "I know your capabilities better than anyone except perhaps Dr. Keller. And if I had refused to come, if I'd rejected reactivation?" "That wasn't an option I considered seriously," Mercer admitted. "Your psychological profile indicated you would prioritize mission parameters once the suppression was lifted." "My psychological profile from before the program," Alex corrected. "Before I spent a year living as Alexandra Reed." Mercer conceded the point with a nod. "People change, even enhanced operatives." He glanced at her terminal. "Find anything interesting in the communication logs?" "Nothing conclusive. Official channels are clean. Too clean, actually. If I were passing classified intelligence, I wouldn't use monitored communications either." "Where would you look next?" Alex considered the question. "Physical movements. Someone had to make contact with the Helix operatives or their handlers. That means leaving the facility, meeting somewhere secure. All personnel movements are logged and monitored. Which means either the logs were altered or the contact happened during authorized travel." Alex pulled up a new set of files. "Show me all off-site missions by key personnel over the past 3 months." The data revealed several possibilities. Director Harlow had attended 3 high-level security conferences. Dr. Keller had visited 2 research facilities to consult on related projects. Colonel Vega had conducted security assessments at multiple Alliance installations. And Mercer had made numerous field operations to monitor various intelligence assets. Any of these trips could have provided opportunity for unauthorized contact. The question was, which one had motive? "What's the Helix Nebula?" Alex asked suddenly. "The operatives came from a blacklisted system in that region, but the files contain minimal information." Mercer's expression turned guarded. "That's beyond your current clearance level." "I thought we'd moved past arbitrary restrictions," Alex said coldly. "Someone sent highly trained operatives to capture or kill me. I need to know why." After a moment's hesitation, Mercer accessed a secure database and entered a series of authorization codes. A new set of files appeared on Alex's terminal. "The Helix Nebula contains a research outpost established jointly by Alliance and Consortium scientists before the current tensions," he explained. "It was designated for exotic physics research, specifically technologies that could theoretically allow faster-than-light communication." "That doesn't sound particularly threatening," Alex noted. "The research evolved," Mercer continued. "From communication to transportation, then to more exotic applications. When the Alliance-Consortium relationship deteriorated, Both sides tried to secure the facility and its research.
The resulting conflict led to a containment breach.
Containment of what? Something the scientists created, or perhaps summoned. The reports aren't entirely clear. What we do know is that the personnel who survived were changed. Alex processed this information. Changed how? Enhanced, but not like you. Their modifications weren't carefully designed and integrated. They were chaotic, unpredictable. Some gained abilities beyond anything our science can explain. Others suffered grotesque mutations. And the Alliance's response? Quarantine. The entire system was blacklisted. All approach vectors mined and monitored. Official records listed as a disaster zone contaminated by experimental radiation. But the quarantine failed, Alex guessed. Some of the changed personnel escaped. They formed what we now call the Helix Operatives, enhanced individuals offering their services to the highest bidder. Some work for the consortium, others operate independently. All are considered extremely dangerous. Alex leaned back, processing the implications. So these Helix Operatives targeted me because of my enhancements. They want to study me, replicate the process that made me stable while their own modifications are chaotic. That's our working theory, Mercer confirmed. Your unique success makes you invaluable, not just to us, but to anyone researching human enhancement. The pieces were falling into place. Not just the immediate threat from the Helix Operatives, but the broader context of why Project Chimera existed, why she had been deployed under deep cover, and why someone might betray the program.
I need to review the personnel files again, Alex said, returning her attention to the terminal.
Specifically, any connections to the original Helix Nebula research. The search yielded an unexpected result.
Dr. Keller had been part of the original research team, though he'd been evacuated before the containment breach.
His expertise in neural integration had made him the perfect candidate to lead Project Chimera's enhancement protocols. Did you know Keller worked at the Helix facility? Alex asked Mercer.
Yes.
That's precisely why he was recruited for Chimera. His experience with the failed enhancements informed our more successful approach.
And you don't see that as a potential security concern? His background was thoroughly vetted, Mercer assured her.
Multiple psychological evaluations, constant monitoring. If he had divided loyalties, we would have detected it. Alex wasn't convinced. She dug deeper into Keller's history, looking for anything that might suggest connections to the Helix Operatives.
His official record was clean, but there were gaps, periods where his activities weren't fully documented.
What about personal relationships? She asked. Friends, colleagues from the Helix facility who might have been among those changed? Mercer frowned. Not that I'm aware of. Most of his former colleagues died in the containment breach or are confirmed quarantined within the system. Most, but not all, Alex noted. I need a complete list of Helix survivors, including those believed to have escaped the quarantine. That information is compartmentalized even beyond my access, Mercer admitted. Only Director Harlow would have the complete file. Alex considered her options. She could confront Harlow directly, but if the director was involved in the leak, that would alert her. Better to gather more evidence first. I need to speak with Colonel Vega, she decided. As security chief, she should have access to personnel monitoring reports. Mercer arranged the meeting, and 30 minutes later, Colonel Vega joined them in the data center. Her expression was professional but wary as Alex explained her request.
You suspect Dr. Keller based on his past assignment? Vega clarified.
That's thin evidence, Lieutenant. He's been with the program since inception, with an exemplary security record. I'm not making accusations, Alex replied. I'm following a logical investigation path. Keller has knowledge of both the Helix incident and my enhancements. That makes him a person of interest. Vega considered this. Fair enough. I can provide security monitoring logs for all key personnel, including Keller. She accessed a secure database through her authorization codes. What specifically are you looking for? Communication patterns, unusual behavior, unexplained absences, anything that deviates from established routines. The logs were comprehensive. Movement tracking, communication metadata, even general behavior assessments from security AI. As they reviewed the data together, a pattern began to emerge. Not with Keller, but with Director Harlow herself. These gaps in her monitoring, Alex pointed out. 3 occasions in the past month where she disabled the tracking protocols on her personal device for periods of 4 to 6 hours. Standard procedure for certain high-level meetings, Vega explained. Some discussions are too sensitive even for encrypted channels. But according to her official schedule, she wasn't in meetings during these periods, Alex countered. She was supposedly in her private quarters. Vega frowned. That's unusual. Protocol requires notification if tracking is disabled for personal reasons.
Could she override that requirement? She's the director. She can override almost any protocol. Vega's expression turned troubled.
But it would generate a security flag in my systems. There's no record of any such flags. Meaning the system itself was modified to prevent the flags from being generated, Mercer concluded. That requires extremely high-level access. Or help from someone with technical expertise, Alex suggested. Someone like Dr. Keller. The three exchanged glances, the implications clear. Either Director Harlow was acting alone, bypassing her own security protocols, or she was working with someone who could help her cover her tracks.
We need more evidence before making accusations, Vega cautioned. Director Harlow has dedicated her career to Alliance security. The idea that she would betray it now... People have complex motivations, Alex replied.
And everyone has pressure points.
What do we know about Harlow's personal life?
Family?
Close relationships?
Vega hesitated before responding. The director is intensely private.
No family that I'm aware of.
Few personal connections outside her professional circle. That's not entirely accurate, Mercer interjected quietly. Harlow had a son, Victor. He was a researcher, assigned to the Helix facility before the containment breach.
Alex felt a chill of recognition.
Let me guess. He was among those changed by whatever happened there.
Presumed dead according to official records, Mercer confirmed. His body was never recovered, but analysis of facility logs indicated he was near the epicenter when containment failed. Or he survived and became one of the Helix operatives, Alex suggested, which would give Harlow a powerful motive to betray the program, to help her son, or perhaps to secure treatment for him if his enhancements are unstable.
It's circumstantial, Vega argued, though her tone suggested she found the theory plausible. We need concrete evidence before confronting the director. Alex turned to her terminal, accessing communication records again. If Harlow was contacting Helix operatives, she wouldn't use official channels. But even unofficial communications leave traces. Power usage patterns, network access logs, radiation signatures from quantum encryption. Those would be automatically scrubbed from the system, Vega pointed out.
From the primary system, yes, Alex agreed.
But what about environmental monitoring?
The facility maintains independent sensors for life support, security, and maintenance. Those systems might capture secondary evidence of communications.
Vega's eyes widened slightly. Clever. Those systems operate on separate networks with their own archival protocols. She accessed a different database, entering her security credentials. Let me check the atmospheric monitoring logs. Quantum communications generate specific radiation patterns that environmental sensors might detect as anomalies. The search took time, the system not designed for this kind of investigation. But eventually, a pattern emerged. Subtle radiation spikes in Director Harlow's quarters coinciding exactly with the periods when her tracking had been disabled. That's consistent with secure quantum communications, Vega confirmed, her expression hardening. Outside our monitored channels.
Can we trace the destination? Alex asked. Not precisely, but we can establish a general vector. Vega performed additional analysis. The signal was directed toward the Helix Nebula sector. Not conclusive proof, but combined with everything else, it's enough to justify further investigation, Mercer concluded. The question is, how do we proceed? If Harlow realizes we suspect her, she could destroy evidence or alert her contacts.
Alex considered their options. We need to set a trap. Give her information she'll feel compelled to share with her Helix contacts. Then monitor the resulting communication.
What kind of information? Vega asked.
Something about me, Alex suggested. Something that would make me an even more valuable target. She thought for a moment.
Tell her my latest medical evaluation revealed an unexpected development. My enhancements are continuing to evolve, becoming more stable and integrated than any previous subject. That would certainly get attention, Mercer agreed. But we'd need to ensure the information reaches only Harlow initially. Dr. Keller can provide the medical update, Alex explained. He already noted that my cognitive enhancements are exceeding design parameters. We simply emphasize those findings in a confidential report to Harlow.
The plan came together quickly. Dr. Keller, after being thoroughly vetted by Vega's security team, agreed to prepare a special medical report highlighting Alex's unique adaptation to the enhancements. The report would be delivered to Director Harlow with the highest security classification, restricting access to her alone. Meanwhile, Vega modified the environmental sensors in Harlow's quarters to capture more detailed data on any quantum communications. If the director took the bait and contacted her Helix connections, they would have definitive proof. 48 hours later, the trap was sprung. Dr. Keller delivered his report, emphasizing that Alex's neurological integration had reached unprecedented levels of stability, making her not just the only successful Chimera subject, but potentially the template for an entirely new generation of enhanced operatives. That evening, the modified sensors detected exactly what they had anticipated. A focused quantum communication burst from Harlow's quarters, directed toward the Helix Nebula sector. The transmission lasted just under 3 minutes, long enough to relay the essential information about Alex's condition. "We have our evidence," Mercer declared, reviewing the sensor logs. "The transmission vector matches previous communications exactly." "What now?" Alex asked. "Confront her directly?" "Not yet," Vega cautioned. "If her son is indeed among the Helix operatives, we need to understand the full extent of her betrayal. Was this a one-time lapse in judgment, or has she been systematically compromising Alliance security?" "Either way, she's dangerous," Alex pointed out. "If she realizes we're on to her, she could warn the Helix operatives to launch another extraction attempt." "Then we ensure she doesn't realize it," Mercer decided. "We continue as normal while monitoring her communications more aggressively. When the Helix operatives respond to her information, as they inevitably will, we'll be prepared." The wait was shorter than expected. Less than 24 hours after Harlow's transmission, long-range sensors detected a vessel approaching from the direction of the Helix Nebula. Its configuration matched the ship that had attacked Outpost Sigma-19, though with modifications to its propulsion and defensive systems. "They took the bait," Mercer observed as they monitored the approaching vessel from a secure command center. "And they're not being subtle about it." "Why would they be?" Alex replied. "From their perspective, they have inside information and support. They're expecting to waltz in, extract me, and disappear before the Alliance can respond effectively. Little do they know we've prepared a proper welcome," Vega said grimly, reviewing the defense plans she had developed. The facility's security systems had been quietly enhanced, with additional personnel strategically positioned. Every approach vector was covered by multiple weapon emplacements. "What about Harlow?" Alex asked. "She'll warn them if she suspects we know." "The director has been called to an emergency briefing," Mercer explained. "She's currently in a secure conference room with communications blocked, ostensibly reviewing a developing situation near the border. By the time she realizes it's a diversion, the Helix vessel will be within our defensive perimeter." As the ship approached, Alex found herself analyzing the tactical situation automatically. Threat assessments, response scenarios, optimal engagement parameters all calculating in her enhanced mind. This was what she had been designed for. High-stakes strategic operations where human limitations would be a fatal disadvantage. "They're entering outer defense range," Vega announced. "Identification protocols initiated." The standard challenge was transmitted to the approaching vessel. "Identify yourself or be treated as hostile." The response was immediate and unexpected. The ship transmitted valid Alliance diplomatic codes, different from those used in the Sigma-19 attack but equally official. "They've improved their forgery capabilities," Mercer noted. "Not forgery," Alex corrected, examining the authorization signature. "Those are genuine codes, current ones." Vega's expression darkened. "Harlow must have provided them. These are director-level authorizations." "Reject them," Mercer ordered. "Cite protocol violations and maintain defensive posture." The Helix vessel's response to the rejection was not the expected aggression, but a direct communication request, specifically asking to speak with Director Harlow. "Put it through to the command center only," Mercer decided. "Let's see who we're dealing with." The main screen activated, revealing a figure whose appearance caused all three of them to tense. Humanoid but distinctly altered, skin with a metallic sheen, eyes that glowed with an internal light, and neural interfaces visibly embedded in the skull and neck. Despite these changes, the facial structure was recognizably similar to Director Harlow's. "Victor Harlow," Mercer murmured. "I wish to speak with Director Elizabeth Harlow," the figure stated, his voice carrying harmonic undertones that no human vocal cords could produce. "I know she's there. This is a family matter." "Director Harlow is unavailable," Mercer replied evenly. "State your business." Victor's altered features formed something approximating a smile. "My business is with the Chimera subject designated Alexandra Reed. My mother has informed me of her unique stability. Such a breakthrough could benefit many who suffer as I do." "Your concern is touching," Alex said, stepping into view. "But I'm not interested in becoming a research subject for the Helix operatives." Victor studied her with unnatural intensity. "Lieutenant Reed, or should I say Major Winters, your original designation before the identity suppression." His head tilted slightly. "Mother didn't mention you'd been fully reactivated. Interesting." The casual revelation of her pre-Chimera identity, a detail not included in Harlow's intercepted transmission, confirmed their suspicions. The director had been feeding information to her son for some time, not just recently. Your mother has committed treason by sharing classified information, Mercer stated flatly. Surrender your vessel, and we can discuss terms that might mitigate her situation. Victor laughed, the sound distorted by his modified physiology.
Always the diplomat, Agent Mercer. But we both know the Alliance doesn't negotiate with security threats like me.
His glowing gaze returned to Alex. I'm offering you a choice, Major. Come willingly, and we can help each other. Your stable enhancements could be the key to helping those of us whose modifications are less elegant. And if I refuse? Alex asked, already calculating combat probabilities. Then we take you by force, Victor replied simply. My operatives have already breached your perimeter defenses. In fact, they should be reaching your level approximately now. As if on cue, alarms blared throughout the facility. Security feeds showed armored figures moving through the lower levels with the same precision Alex had witnessed at Outpost Sigma-19. How? Vega began before understanding dawned. Harlow, she gave them the facility schematics. Among other things, Victor confirmed. Mother has been quite helpful in planning this operation. She believes in my work, our work, even if the Alliance abandoned us after the Helix incident. Alex processed this information rapidly, formulating and discarding response strategies. The facility's defenses were compromised, their security protocols known to the enemy. Standard tactics would fail against an adversary with such complete intelligence. Time for something unorthodox. I need 5 minutes, she told Mercer quietly.
Keep him talking. As Mercer engaged Victor in diplomatic doublespeak, Alex slipped from the command center.
In the corridor outside, she accessed a maintenance terminal and began overriding safety protocols throughout the facility. Environmental controls, power distribution, security systems, all could be weaponized if you were willing to ignore standard operating procedures. By the time she returned to the command center, the intruders had reached the upper levels. Security feeds showed them methodically neutralizing resistance, clearly following a pre-planned route directly to her location. Victor is still pontificating about the noble work of the Helix operatives, Mercer informed her in a low voice. Apparently, they see themselves as the next stage of human evolution, helping those the Alliance abandoned. Very altruistic, Alex replied dryly. Colonel Vega, I've rerouted emergency protocols through your security authorization. On my signal, enter command sequence Alpha 7 Delta. Vega looked surprised, but nodded. What will that do? Create chaos, Alex said simply, which is exactly what we need right now. The command center door shuddered as something impacted it from outside. The same breaching technique used at Sigma-19. Alex positioned herself directly in view of the communication screen, ensuring Victor could see her clearly. Last chance, she called to the image on the screen. Withdraw your forces or this gets messy. Victor's altered face showed amusement. You're surrounded, outnumbered, and outgunned. There's no scenario where you prevail, Major. That's where you're wrong, Alex replied calmly. There's always another option when you're willing to think beyond conventional tactics. She glanced at Vega. Now, Colonel. Vega entered the command sequence. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, throughout the facility, chaos erupted. Emergency bulkheads slammed down in randomized patterns, trapping Helix operatives in isolated sections. Ventilation systems began cycling atmosphere at maximum capacity, creating hurricane-force winds in some corridors while evacuating air completely from others. Lighting systems fluctuated wildly, disrupting the operatives' visual sensors. Most dramatically, the artificial gravity deactivated in selected sections, sending unanchored personnel and equipment floating in zero-G. On the security feeds, the previously coordinated assault dissolved into confusion as operatives found themselves separated, disoriented, and fighting against environmental conditions rather than facility defenders. Victor's expression shifted from confidence to alarm. What have you done? Created a tactical advantage, Alex replied. Your operatives might be enhanced, but they rely on planning and coordination. Take those away, and they're just individuals with fancy implants. The command center door buckled inward as the breaching charges finally detonated. 3 Helix operatives surged through the opening, weapons ready, only to find themselves suddenly weightless as Alex's reprogrammed systems eliminated gravity in that section. Unlike the operatives, Alex was prepared. She launched herself from a fixed position, using the zero-G environment to her advantage. Her enhanced reflexes calculated trajectories and momentum perfectly, allowing her to intercept the first operative before he could stabilize himself. The fight was brief and decisive. Without solid footing, the operative's superior strength meant little. Alex neutralized all 3 within 30 seconds, using their own momentum against them with precisely applied force. Your extraction team has failed, she informed Victor, who watched the display with evident shock.
And your ship is about to have company. Alliance rapid response vessels are already en route.
It was a bluff. No reinforcements had been called, but Victor couldn't know that.
His altered features contorted in frustration. This isn't over, he promised. Mother's position gives us advantages you can't imagine. We'll find you eventually.
I'm counting on it, Alex replied.
Next time I'll be better prepared. The communication cut abruptly as Victor's ship broke orbit, accelerating away from the facility. Tactical projections indicated it would reach FTL jump range before any hypothetical pursuit could intercept it. They're retreating, Vega confirmed, monitoring the security feeds. The remaining operatives are withdrawing to extraction points. Let them go, Mercer decided. We have a more immediate concern. He glanced meaningfully at the secure conference room where Director Harlow remained, still unaware that her betrayal had been discovered. Alex restored normal environmental conditions throughout the facility, allowing the defense teams to regroup and assess casualties. The Helix operatives had inflicted damage, but nothing critical. Her unconventional tactics had disrupted their careful planning, reducing their effectiveness significantly. "What now?" she asked as they gathered outside the conference room where Harlow waited. "We take her into custody," Mercer replied. "She'll face charges of treason, conspiracy, unauthorized disclosure of classified information. The list is extensive." "And then?" Alex pressed.
What happens to Project Chimera? To me?
Mercer exchanged glances with Vega before responding. "That's complicated. The project's security has been fundamentally compromised. Standard protocol would call for complete shutdown, including—" He didn't finish the sentence. "Including Protocol Omega for existing subjects," Alex completed for him, meaning me. "I wouldn't support that option," Vega interjected firmly. "You've proven your value beyond question. Without you, this facility would have been overrun. The decision isn't ours to make," Mercer cautioned. "Once Harlow is in custody, Alliance High Command will review the entire program." Alex considered her position. The Alliance might well decide she was too great a security risk now that the Helix operatives knew about her. Protocol Omega would be the cleanest solution from their perspective. Eliminate the asset rather than risk its capture. But she wasn't just an asset anymore. She was Alexandra Reed, lieutenant in the Alliance Security Forces, and simultaneously Major Elizabeth Winters, enhanced operative of Project Chimera. Both identities were real, both formed her current self, and that self had no intention of being decommissioned for administrative convenience. "Let's deal with Harlow first," she decided. "The rest can wait." They entered the conference room together. Director Harlow looked up from her datapad, irritation evident on her features. "Agent Mercer, what is the meaning of this emergency briefing? I've been waiting for over an hour with no—" She stopped abruptly, noticing their expressions and the security personnel behind them. Understanding dawned in her eyes. "Ah, I see. Director Elizabeth Harlow," Mercer stated formally. "You are hereby detained on suspicion of treason, conspiracy, and unauthorized disclosure of classified intelligence to hostile entities." Harlow's composure remained intact. "Victor contacted you, I assume?" He was always impatient, even before the changes. She looked directly at Alex. "He only wants help. The Helix survivors are dying from their unstable modifications. Your successful integration represents their only hope. So you betrayed your oath, your position, and dozens of innocent people who died in the attacks?" Alex asked, keeping her voice neutral despite the anger she felt. "All for one person?" "For my son," Harlow corrected. "You can't understand until you've faced the same choice. What would you sacrifice for someone you love more than your own life?" Before Alex could respond, alarms blared again, different from the previous security alert. These were deeper, more urgent. The facility's critical emergency system. "Critical containment breach detected," an automated voice announced. 15 minutes to facility evacuation. This is not a drill." Vega rushed to the nearest terminal. "Someone's activated the emergency evacuation protocols. But there's no actual containment breach. It's been triggered manually." "Override it," Mercer demanded. "I can't. It's been locked with director-level authorization." Vega looked accusingly at Harlow. "What have you done?" Harlow smiled thinly. "Insurance policy. I suspected you might discover my communications eventually. The evacuation can only be aborted with my personal authorization code, which I will provide once I'm safely away from this facility, with Lieutenant Reed accompanying me." "You're insane," Mercer breathed. "There are over 100 personnel in this facility, and they'll all survive if you cooperate," Harlow replied calmly. "A shuttle is already prepared in Bay 3. Lieutenant Reed and I will depart immediately. Once we're clear, I'll transmit the abort code." "Don't do this," Alex urged. "Whatever you think Victor needs, this isn't the way." "It's the only way left,"
Harlow insisted. The Alliance abandoned the Helix survivors, labeled them security threats, and left them to suffer. I won't abandon my son the same way. The countdown continued, each second reducing their options. Alex calculated probabilities rapidly. Even if they forced the abort code from Harlow, the verification process might take too long. Evacuation was possible for most personnel, but the facility would be lost along with all its research. I'll go, she decided suddenly. But only if all personnel are evacuated first. Alex, no, Mercer objected. We can't trust her to provide the abort code once you're in her custody. We don't have a choice, Alex countered. 100 lives against 1. She turned to Harlow. Those are my terms. Full evacuation, then I go with you voluntarily. Harlow considered briefly, then nodded. Acceptable. The countdown gives us sufficient time for evacuation. The next 13 minutes were controlled chaos as the facility's personnel rushed to evacuation points. Vega coordinated the process with military efficiency, ensuring no one was left behind. Meanwhile, Alex prepared for departure with Harlow, her enhanced mind continuously calculating escape scenarios. Don't try anything heroic, Harlow warned as they walked toward the shuttle bay, surrounded by security personnel who had been instructed not to interfere. The abort code is mentally encrypted. If I'm incapacitated, the facility is lost. I understand the situation perfectly, Alex assured her. Just like I understand that once we're away, you have no incentive to save the facility anyway. I'm not a monster, Lieutenant. I don't want those people to die. I just want to save my son. By turning me over to the Helix operatives for experimentation, Alex pointed out. Not exactly moral high ground. Harlow didn't respond to that. They reached the shuttle bay just as the evacuation was completing. Vega's voice came over the communication system. All personnel accounted for except essential command staff. Evacuation 98% complete. That's our cue, Harlow said, gesturing toward the waiting shuttle. After you, Lieutenant. Alex entered the shuttle, analyzing its systems with a quick glance. Standard Alliance transport, minimally armed but fast. 2 pilot seats, passenger compartment, small cargo area. No crew? Harlow evidently planned to fly it herself. Take the co-pilot seat, Harlow instructed, sliding into the pilot position. And don't touch anything. The abort code transmission is keyed to my biometrics as a failsafe. Alex complied, watching as Harlow initiated launch procedures. The shuttle's engines hummed to life, the bay doors opening to reveal the star-filled darkness of space beyond. Shuttle launch authorized, came Mercer's voice over the communication system. Director Harlow, remember our agreement? The abort code must be transmitted once you clear the facility's defensive perimeter. Of course, Agent Mercer. I am a woman of my word. The shuttle lifted smoothly, exiting the bay and accelerating away from the facility. On the chronometer, the evacuation countdown showed less than 1 minute remaining. The abort code, Director, Alex prompted as they cleared the defensive perimeter. You promised. Harlow's hands moved across the control panel, transmitting the required authorization. The evacuation alert immediately ceased, replaced by an all-clear signal. There, Harlow said with satisfaction. Everyone's safe as promised. I told you I wasn't a monster. Alex studied her carefully. But you are still planning to hand me over to Victor? To help him and others like him, yes. Your stable enhancements could save hundreds of lives. Harlow glanced at her. You volunteered for this program to serve a greater good. This isn't so different. Before Alex could respond, the shuttle's sensors detected a ship approaching, emerging from stealth mode directly ahead. Its configuration was immediately recognizable as the Helix vessel that had retreated from the facility. Right on schedule, Harlow murmured. Victor always had excellent timing. The Helix vessel grew larger in the view screen, a docking bay opening like a maw to receive their shuttle. Alex assessed her options rapidly. She could attempt to overpower Harlow and take control of the shuttle, but the Helix ship would likely disable them before she could complete course correction. This doesn't have to be adversarial, Harlow said, noting her tension. Victor's people only want to study your enhancements, to understand why they succeeded when others failed. You could help save hundreds of lives. By becoming a laboratory specimen, Alex replied. Forgive me if I'm not enthusiastic about the prospect. The shuttle continued its approach to the Helix vessel, now close enough that details of its unusual construction were visible. The hull appeared partially organic, with sections that pulsed and shifted in ways no standard material should. A product of the Helix incident, Harlow explained, following her gaze. The boundaries between technology and biology became fluid during the containment breach. The survivors integrated with their environment in ways our science still doesn't fully understand. And that doesn't concern you? Alex asked. That your son is part of something so fundamentally alien? What concerns me is that he's suffering, Harlow replied sharply. The integration is incomplete, unstable. His systems are slowly breaking down, along with those of the other survivors. Her expression softened slightly. You're different. Your enhancements were methodically designed, carefully integrated. The key to saving Victor lies in understanding how your modifications succeeded where others failed. The shuttle entered the Helix vessel's docking bay, settling onto the deck with a gentle thud. Through the viewport, Alex could see figures waiting, some in the same tactical armor as the operatives she'd fought, others in what appeared to be medical garb. Last chance, Director, Alex said quietly. You can still end this. Return to the Alliance, explain your actions. With your cooperation, they might help find a way to treat Victor legitimately. Harlow's laugh was bitter. The Alliance declared the Helix survivors non-persons the moment the containment breach occurred. They're classified as security threats, not patients. There is no legitimate help coming. She rose from her seat. This is the only way. As the shuttle's hatch began to open, Alex made her decision. Not the logical choice, perhaps, but the human one. I understand why you did it, she said softly. I don't agree with your methods, but I understand the motivation. Harlow paused, surprised by the shift in tone. Then you'll cooperate? No, Alex replied simply. But I won't condemn you either. You acted out of love, however misguided. Before Harlow could respond, Alex moved, faster than any unenhanced human could track. Her hand found the emergency release for the co-pilot's seat, converting it instantly into an escape pod configuration. The shuttle's emergency protocols recognized the activation and automatically sealed the compartment. What are you? Harlow began, but her words were cut off as the pod ejected forcefully from the shuttle's underside, launching through an emergency access port in the docking bay floor. The tiny pod tumbled through space, its minimal thrusters struggling to stabilize. Through the small viewport, Alex watched as the Helix vessel receded, its unusual hull rippling with what might have been agitation. The pod's communication system crackled to life. Lieutenant Reed, came Mercer's voice, tense but controlled. Our sensors detected an emergency ejection. Status? Alive and free, Alex replied. Director Harlow is aboard the Helix vessel. No injuries on either side. Understood. Maintain position. Extraction team en route to your coordinates. Alex settled back in the cramped pod, monitoring the Helix vessel through the viewport. It remained stationary, perhaps assessing whether to pursue. After several minutes, it began to move, not toward her, but away, accelerating rapidly before disappearing into FTL. They had let her go. Curious. The Alliance extraction team arrived 20 minutes later, a sleek Corvette designed for rapid deployment and recovery operations. As the pod was drawn into its recovery bay, Alex considered what would come next. Her cover at Outpost Sigma-19 was irreparably blown. Project Chimera was compromised. Director Harlow's defection would trigger the most extensive security review in Alliance history. And she, the only successful Chimera subject, represented both a valuable asset and a potential liability. Protocol Omega remained a possibility. Some within the Alliance would argue that she knew too much, that her enhancements were too valuable to risk capture. Others might see her potential as outweighing the risks. But they would be missing the most important factor. She was no longer just a project asset. The experiences, relationships, and choices she had made, both as Alexandra Reed and in her original identity, had created someone new, someone who could make her own decisions. As the recovery team secured her pod and prepared to open it, Alex made a promise to herself. Whatever came next, whatever the Alliance decided, she would determine her own fate. The human within the enhanced operative would have the final say. The pod hatch opened, revealing a team of Alliance security personnel led by Agent Mercer. His expression was unreadable as he offered a hand to help her exit the cramped compartment. Welcome back, Lieutenant, he said formally. Or should I say Major? Your status is somewhat undefined at the moment. Alex accepted his hand, stepping onto the deck with fluid grace. Let's stick with Alex for now, she suggested. The rest can be sorted out later. Mercer nodded, then lowered his voice. You should know. There's already discussion about Protocol Omega at the highest levels. The security breach is unprecedented. I expected as much, Alex replied calmly. And what's your position on the matter? He hesitated before answering. Officially, I follow orders. Unofficially, I believe assets should be evaluated on their current value, not potential risk. Good to know. Alex stretched subtly, feeling her enhanced body respond with perfect precision despite the recent trauma. I assume we're heading back to Alliance space? Central Command specifically, Mercer confirmed. The Joint Chiefs want to debrief you personally. Alex smiled slightly. I look forward to the conversation. As the Corvette accelerated toward Alliance space, Alex gazed out at the stars, considering possibilities. The Helix operatives would come for her again. Harlow and her son would not abandon their pursuit easily. And the Alliance itself represented an uncertain future. Protection and purpose, but also potential confinement or termination. The universe had become significantly more complicated since that conversation in the Sigma-19 rec room just days ago. "You know what's weird about humans?" Kistvak had asked, mandibles clicking with smug certainty. "They're absolutely terrible at killing things quickly." If only he could see her now. 3 months later. The diplomatic reception hall on New Geneva Station hummed with conversation, representatives from a dozen species mingling with practiced cordiality. Alliance and consortium diplomats maintained polite distances from each other, while proxies engaged in the real negotiations that would never appear in official records. Commander Veleth stood near the refreshment table, looking distinctly uncomfortable in formal diplomatic attire. His scaled skin seemed duller under the bright lighting, though that might have been the effect of 3 hours of political small talk. "You appear to be enjoying yourself immensely, Commander," observed a familiar voice. Veleth turned to find Alexandra Reed, now officially Lieutenant Commander Reed following her promotion, approaching with 2 glasses of something blue and effervescent. "Lieutenant, forgive me, Commander Reed," he greeted her, accepting the offered drink. "A pleasant surprise. I didn't realize you were stationed at New Geneva." "Recent assignment," Alex replied. "Diplomatic security detail, very routine." "Of course," Veleth said, mandibles twitching slightly in what Alex recognized as skepticism. "Just as I'm sure your promotion and new posting had nothing to do with the incident at Sigma-19. Alex smiled. The Alliance occasionally recognizes merit, surprising as that may seem. They sipped their drinks in companionable silence for a moment, observing the diplomatic dance happening around them. A consortium trade minister was engaged in animated conversation with an Alliance economic advisor near the main entrance. 2 Dravidi representatives were examining an art installation with their species' characteristic intensity. A group of Yithic diplomats, including one with a particularly shiny emerald carapace, were clustered near the speaker's podium. "Is that Kistvak?" Alex asked, nodding toward the Yithic group. "Indeed," Veleth confirmed. "Recently appointed as a junior diplomatic attaché to the Consortium Border Affairs Committee. He specifically requested assignment to New Geneva Station." "That's unexpected." "Less so than you might think. After the incident at Sigma-19, he developed a sudden intense interest in human-Ythic relations. Something about a fundamental reassessment of interspecies capabilities." Veleth's tone remained neutral, but his eyes conveyed amusement. "He's written several papers on the subject, quite popular among certain academic circles. I'm honored to have contributed to interspecies understanding," Alex said dryly. "Speaking of contributions," Veleth continued, "I understand the Alliance has implemented new security protocols for all border monitoring stations based on your creative response to the Sigma-19 incursion. Standard procedure after any security incident." Alex deflected. "Identify vulnerabilities, adapt, improve." Veleth studied her with unnerving intensity. "And yet, I can't help noticing that your new assignment places you at the center of Alliance Consortium diplomatic relations, where you would be positioned to identify potential security threats before they materialize." Alex maintained a casual expression. "Pure coincidence, I assure you." "Of course." Veleth clearly didn't believe her, but was too diplomatic to press further. "In any case, your presence is appreciated. The current negotiations are delicate, especially with the rumors about Helix operative involvement in recent border incidents." Alex tensed slightly but kept her expression neutral. "Oh, I haven't heard those rumors." "No?" Veleth's mandibles twitched. "Strange, considering your personal experience with them. There have been reports of enhanced operatives testing Alliance defenses along the Cygnus Arm. Nothing confirmed officially, but enough incidents to establish a pattern." Before Alex could respond, a chime sounded, indicating the formal proceedings were about to begin. Delegates moved toward their designated seating areas, the gentle hum of conversation diminishing. "Duty calls," Veleth said, finishing his drink. "Perhaps we can continue this conversation later, Commander Reed." "I'd like that," Alex replied sincerely. "It's good to see a familiar face." As Veleth moved toward the consortium delegation section, Alex scanned the room with practiced efficiency. Her enhanced senses cataloged potential threats, escape routes, and tactical positions automatically, a background process that had become second nature since her full reactivation. The Joint Chiefs had ultimately decided against Protocol Omega, recognizing that Alex's unique capabilities outweighed the security risks. Her full memories and enhanced abilities had been maintained, but with new operational parameters: no deep cover assignments, regular psychological evaluation, and direct oversight from Alliance intelligence. In practice, this meant she straddled the line between conventional military officer and covert operative. Her official posting to diplomatic security provided cover for her real mission, monitoring consortium activities for any sign of Helix operative involvement, particularly anything connected to Victor Harlow and his mother. The former director had disappeared completely after the shuttle incident. Alliance intelligence presumed she had integrated fully with the Helix operatives, providing them with valuable intelligence on Alliance security protocols. Victor's group had been unusually active in recent months, probing defenses and gathering information rather than conducting direct operations. They were planning something significant. Alex could feel it. As the diplomatic proceedings began with the traditional exchange of formal greetings, Alex maintained her position near the main entrance, observing the crowd. Nothing seemed immediately suspicious, but experience had taught her that threats often emerged from unexpected quarters. Her communication implant, a recent addition that interfaced directly with her enhanced neural pathways, chimed softly, indicating a priority message from Alliance intelligence. "Read," she subvocalized, the implant detecting the minute throat movements and translating them into clear communication. "Commander," came Mercer's voice, transmitted directly to her auditory nerves. "We've intercepted communications suggesting Helix operative presence on New Geneva, potential infiltration of the diplomatic corps." "Understood," Alex replied, scanning the room with renewed focus. "Any specific targets identified?" "Negative. Intelligence is fragmentary. Exercise extreme caution. If Helix operatives are present, they'll recognize you." "Acknowledged." The formal speeches had begun, an Alliance representative welcoming the gathered diplomats with practiced platitudes about cooperation and mutual benefit. Alex tuned out the words, focusing instead on subtle behavioral cues throughout the audience. Enhanced hearing allowed her to monitor multiple conversations simultaneously, filtering for keywords or tonal anomalies that might indicate deception. Nothing immediately suspicious emerged, but something felt wrong. An instinct born of enhanced intuition combined with tactical training, a sense that she was missing something important. She shifted position slightly, moving to where she could observe both the speaker's podium and the main entrance. The consortium delegation appeared typically reserved, their senior representatives maintaining the carefully neutral expressions diplomatic protocol required. Among the junior staffers, however, one figure caught her attention. A human aide who seemed unusually focused on his datapad rather than the proceedings. Alex enhanced her vision, examining the aide more closely. Nothing obviously suspicious, appropriate credentials visible on his uniform, standard consortium diplomatic corps attire, body language consistent with boredom rather than tension. And yet, she activated her implant again. "Mercer, I need identification on a human male in the consortium delegation." Junior aide, approximately 30, dark hair, blue diplomatic uniform, currently seated third row back, far left. A brief pause as Mercer presumably accessed relevant databases. Identified as Thomas Reeves, diplomatic corps for 3 years, assigned to consortium Undersecretary Levian. No red flags in his background. "Run a deeper check," Alex instructed. "Something feels off." As she waited for Mercer's response, the diplomatic proceedings continued. The Alliance representative concluded his welcome, yielding the podium to the consortium's senior diplomat. The transition was smooth, practiced, exactly as these ceremonies always proceeded. Too smooth, perhaps. Alex's enhanced senses detected a subtle shift in the room's atmospheric composition. Barely perceptible, but definitely present. The air recycling system had altered its output parameters by approximately 0.02%, a minor fluctuation that most environmental monitoring systems would ignore as within normal variance. But Alex wasn't most monitoring systems. "Mercer," she subvocalized urgently. "Something's happening. The environmental systems have been modified." "Specifics?" came the immediate response. "Unknown compound being introduced through air circulation. Concentration too low for immediate effects, but building gradually. Evacuation protocols?" Alex considered briefly. "Negative. Too subtle for conventional detection. Initiating would cause panic without clear justification. I need to locate the source first." Her enhanced olfactory capabilities, another benefit of the Chimera modifications, detected what normal human senses couldn't. A faint, almost imperceptible chemical signature underlying the station's normal atmospheric mix. Something designed to be undetectable until its concentration reached effective levels. The consortium diplomat had begun his address, speaking of renewed cooperation and shared interests between the factions. The audience appeared attentive, though Alex noticed several delegates, particularly those with more sensitive respiratory systems, shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Whatever was being introduced to the atmosphere, some species were already feeling its effects. Her gaze returned to Thomas Reeves, the consortium aide. He remained focused on his datapad, but now Alex noticed he was breathing differently than those around him. Shallow, controlled inhalations, as if minimizing his exposure to the station's atmosphere. "Mercer," she subvocalized. "Reeves is involved. He's controlling his breathing pattern to reduce exposure." "Understood. Security team's on standby, but we need more before intervening at a diplomatic function." Alex moved casually around the perimeter of the room, positioning herself closer to the consortium delegation while maintaining an official security posture. As she approached, her enhanced hearing detected Reeves speaking softly into a communication device concealed as a standard diplomatic translator. "Dispersal at 17%. Estimated time to optimal concentration, 4 minutes. That confirmed it. Whatever was being introduced to the station's atmosphere would reach its intended effect threshold in 4 minutes. Alex needed to act now, but direct intervention would create a diplomatic incident without concrete evidence. Her enhanced mind calculated options rapidly, assessing and discarding scenarios based on predicted outcomes. Standard security protocols were too slow, too obvious. She needed something unexpected. "Mercer, I need control of the station's environmental alert system. Security clearance Alpha 9 Echo." A brief pause. "Confirmed. What's the play?" "False environmental alert, specific to Section 14B maintenance access, adjacent to the reception hall. Tagged as routine diagnostic." "Understood. Implementing now." 30 seconds later, a soft alert chime sounded, barely audible above the diplomat's speech. Service personnel, the only ones who would recognize the maintenance alert, began moving discreetly toward control panels and access points. Alex intercepted a station engineer before he could reach the environmental control panel near the consortium delegation. "Security override," she murmured, showing her credentials. "I'll handle this section." The engineer nodded and diverted to another area, leaving Alex free to access the panel. With quick, precise movements, she activated the diagnostic interface and identified the source of the atmospheric alteration. A modified filtration node in the circulation system directly above the speaker's podium. Whatever was being introduced was concentrated there, designed to affect the diplomats most severely. And based on the distribution pattern, it wasn't lethal, at least not immediately. Something designed to incapacitate rather than kill. Alex's enhanced cognition made the connection instantly. The most vulnerable individuals would be those at the podium, the senior diplomats from both factions. Incapacitate them in the middle of formal proceedings, create confusion and potential medical emergency, and in the chaos. She scanned the room again, this time looking not for the source, but for the objective. What would happen during the disruption? Her gaze landed on a consortium security officer positioned near a side entrance, standard posting for diplomatic protection, except for one detail. His hand rested near his sidearm, fingers twitching slightly in what might have been anticipation. And he was watching not the crowd for threats, but the consortium's own trade minister, the one deep in conversation with the Alliance economic advisor. "Mercer," Alex subvocalized urgently. "It's an assassination setup. Consortium security officer near the eastern entrance is targeting their own trade minister." "Confirmed visual," came Mercer's tense response. "But we need more before intervening. This could be a massive diplomatic incident if we're wrong." "We're not wrong," Alex insisted. "The atmospheric agent is to create confusion. The security officer will eliminate the target during the chaos, making it appear to be part of whatever effect the agent has." "Why would the consortium eliminate their own minister?" "Because he's about to agree to something they don't want," Alex realized, pieces falling into place. The private conversation with the Alliance advisor. They're finalizing terms outside official channels. 3 minutes until optimal concentration. Alex needed to act now, but direct intervention against a consortium security officer without absolute proof would trigger a diplomatic crisis at best, armed confrontation at worst. Time for another unorthodox approach. "Mercer, I need a station-wide security communication. All channels, authorization code Read 77 Charlie. "That's a hostile intrusion alert," Mercer objected. "It will trigger full security protocols." "Exactly. Do it." Without waiting for confirmation, Alex moved toward the podium, her enhanced speed allowing her to cross the room faster than normal human perception could easily track. She reached the consortium diplomat just as he was concluding his remarks, stepping smoothly beside him as if this were part of the ceremony. "Security alert," she said clearly into the microphone, her voice carrying throughout the hall. "All diplomatic personnel, please remain in your seats. Security teams will escort you to designated safe areas momentarily." The diplomat stared at her in shock. But before he could object, the station's security alert blared, the unmistakable tone of a hostile intrusion warning. Instantly, security personnel from both factions moved to protective positions around their respective diplomats. In the controlled chaos that followed, Alex kept her focus on 3 targets simultaneously. Thomas Reeves, who had suddenly abandoned his casual posture and was moving toward an exit. The consortium's security officer, whose hand had moved decisively to his weapon, and the trade minister, who looked more confused than alarmed. Mercer, target's moving. Reeves heading for east exit, security officer drawing weapon. Teams engaging, came the response. Ambassador secure, proceed with caution. Alex made her decision instantly. The security officer presented the immediate threat. Reeves was merely the facilitator. With enhanced speed that appeared almost supernatural to normal human perception, she launched herself across the room, calculating trajectories and interception points automatically. The security officer had drawn his weapon, using the confusion of the security alert as cover. As diplomats were hustled towards safety by their protection details, he adjusted his position for a clear line of fire to the trade minister. Alex reached him just as his finger tightened on the trigger. Her enhanced strength allowed her to redirect his arm upward, the discharge harmlessly hitting the ceiling. Before he could react, she executed a precise nerve strike to his wrist, forcing him to drop the weapon, followed by a controlled takedown that immobilized him without causing permanent injury. Hostile neutralized, she subvocalized. Secure the weapon for evidence. Around her, the security alert had triggered full containment protocols. Alliance and consortium security teams had established protective cordons around their respective diplomats, weapons drawn, but not yet aimed at each other. The atmosphere was tense but controlled, exactly as needed to prevent the planned assassination. Reeves is attempting to access Maintenance Shaft 12, Mercer reported. Team intercepting now. Alex secured the would-be assassin with restraints, ignoring his protests about diplomatic immunity. The evidence would be clear enough once the weapon was analyzed. Non-standard ammunition designed to mimic the effects of the atmospheric agent, making the death appear to be from the same cause affecting others. The air filtration system is still compromised, she reported. Environmental teams need to purge Section 4C immediately before concentration reaches harmful levels. Already implementing, Mercer confirmed. Station security has been notified of the chemical agent. Evacuation of affected areas in progress. As Alliance security personnel took custody of her prisoner, Alex turned her attention to the broader situation. The diplomatic reception had transformed into a coordinated security operation, with medical teams now entering to evaluate those showing symptoms of exposure to the unknown agent. Commander Veleth approached, his expression a mixture of concern and what might have been admiration. Commander Reed, he acknowledged. Once again, you appear to be at the center of an incident. Pure coincidence, Alex replied with a faint smile. Wrong place, right time. Indeed. Veleth's mandibles clicked softly. Though I can't help noticing you neutralized a security threat before most of us were aware it existed. Rather like it's Sigma-19. Just doing my job, Commander. Of course. Veleth studied her with unnerving intensity. You know, there's an old Saurian proverb. The predator who hides its claws is the one most likely to survive the winter. Sounds like wisdom that translates across species, Alex replied carefully. Perhaps. Veleth glanced toward the secured assassin. Consortium security will demand his release under diplomatic protocols. They're welcome to him after Alliance intelligence confirms what we already know. He was attempting to assassinate his own trade minister to prevent an economic agreement that certain factions within the consortium oppose. Veleth's scaled brow raised slightly. That's a significant accusation. One the evidence will support, Alex assured him. The weapon, the atmospheric agent, the communication logs. It's a coordinated operation. And you discerned all this how exactly? Alex smiled. Careful observation and quick thinking. Nothing more remarkable than that. Before Veleth could press further, Mercer approached, his expression professionally neutral, though Alex detected subtle signs of tension. Commander Reed, your presence is requested in Secure Briefing Room 2, Priority Alpha. Of course. She nodded to Veleth. If you'll excuse me, Commander. Certainly. Veleth's mandibles clicked softly, though I suspect our conversations about human capabilities are far from concluded. As Alex followed Mercer from the reception hall, now transformed into a secured incident area, she monitored the ongoing response through her neural implant. The would-be assassin was in custody. Reeves had been apprehended attempting to access an escape vessel, and environmental systems were being purged of the chemical agent. Crisis averted, with minimal diplomatic fallout given the clear evidence of consortium factional involvement rather than official policy. You took a significant risk, Mercer observed as they entered a secure corridor. Intervening so publicly risks exposing your enhanced capabilities. I intervened as any trained security officer would, Alex countered. Nothing I did exceeded normal human parameters, to outside observation. Commander Veleth seems to have his suspicions. Veleth has had suspicions since Sigma-19. But suspicion isn't confirmation. Alex glanced at Mercer. What's the priority alpha? Mercer's expression turned grave. We've identified the chemical agent. It's a helix-operative neural suppressant, specifically designed to incapacitate enhanced individuals while appearing to be a mild irritant to normal humans. Alex processed this information rapidly. They weren't just creating cover for an assassination. They were hunting me. That's our assessment. The concentration was building most rapidly near your initial position. Mercer paused outside the briefing room door. This wasn't just a consortium factional operation. Helix operatives provided the technology and expertise.
Victor Harlow, Alex concluded.
He's still looking for me. And getting bolder in his approach. Mercer activated the door scanner. The Joint Chiefs are concerned. This operation put hundreds of diplomats at risk just to flush you out, or to neutralize me before I could interfere with their actual objective, the assassination. The briefing room contained not the expected group of intelligence officers, but a single individual, Admiral Callan, head of Alliance Special Operations. Her silver hair was cut in a severe military style, her uniform immaculate despite the late hour. Commander Reed, she greeted Alex without preamble. Your intervention today prevented a diplomatic catastrophe. Well done. Thank you, Admiral. Though I suspect this meeting isn't about commendations. Perceptive. Callan gestured to the seats around the briefing table. We have a situation developing that requires your unique capabilities. As they sat, a holographic display activated in the center of the table, showing what appeared to be a research facility built into an asteroid. Sensor data scrolled alongside the image, indicating significant energy signatures and unusual radiation patterns. This is Outpost Vega 7, Callan explained. Officially a deep space research facility studying stellar phenomena. In reality, it's where we've been monitoring Helix operative communications and movements for the past 2 years. Alex studied the display. And now? Now it's gone silent, Mercer supplied. No communication for 72 hours. Long-range sensors show the facility intact but with unusual energy patterns. You think the Helix operatives have taken it, Alex concluded. We know they have, Callan corrected. A partial transmission was received before communications went dark. She activated another holographic display, this one showing a distorted video feed. The image showed a laboratory in disarray, equipment damaged, personnel either dead or restrained. Standing in the center was a figure Alex recognized immediately. Victor Harlow. His modified form even more altered than when she'd last seen him. Beside him stood his mother, the former director, looking composed despite the violence around her. Demand a trade, Victor was saying, his voice distorted by both the poor transmission and his modified vocal apparatus. The Alliance will deliver Alexandra Reed to coordinates that follow, or we will release the contents of the Vega 7 secure archives to both the consortium and the public. The transmission cut off there, dissolving into static. The secure archives, Alex said, understanding immediately. They contain details on Project Chimera. And much more, Callan confirmed grimly. Vega 7 houses our complete intelligence on the Helix incident, including the Alliance's role in the containment breach and subsequent cover-up. If that information becomes public, it would not only compromise our enhanced operative programs, but potentially trigger open conflict with the consortium. They're escalating from attempted capture to outright blackmail, Mercer observed. Because their previous attempts failed, Alex noted. They're getting desperate. Callan studied her with analytical intensity. Commander Reed, we're asking you to lead a recovery operation. A small elite team will infiltrate Vega 7, neutralize the Helix operative presence, and secure the archives. With respect, Admiral, that sounds like a suicide mission. The Helix operatives have enhanced capabilities that can rival or exceed my own, and they'll be expecting a recovery attempt. They'll be expecting a conventional military response, Callan corrected. A squadron of ships, a large assault team, something they can detect and prepare for. What they won't anticipate is a single enhanced operative with intimate knowledge of their modifications and weaknesses. Alex considered the tactical parameters. Even with my capabilities, the odds are irrelevant, Callan interrupted. You've already demonstrated the ability to overcome superior numbers and positioning through unconventional tactics. That's precisely what this situation requires. A silence fell over the briefing room as Alex processed the request. It was more than a high-risk mission. It was a deliberate confrontation with Victor Harlow and his Helix operatives. The very people who had been hunting her for months. What about Director Harlow? She asked finally. She knows me,
my capabilities, my tactical preferences. Which is why your approach must be something she would never anticipate, Callan replied. Something beyond standard Alliance protocols. Alex studied the holographic display of Outpost Vega 7, her enhanced mind already calculating entry points, defensive positions, potential ambush locations. The facility's design was familiar, standard Alliance research outpost architecture with predictable security measures and environmental systems. Systems that could be repurposed, just as she had done at Sigma-19, and again at the diplomatic reception. I'll need complete schematics, she decided. Not just the official layouts, but the actual construction plans, including maintenance access, emergency protocols, and life support configurations. Already compiled, Mercer said, transferring a data package to her neural implant. And I'll need one more thing, Alex added, looking directly at Admiral Callan. Complete operational autonomy. No oversight, no protocols, no rules of engagement. I do this my way or not at all. Callan's expression remained impassive, but something like approval flickered in her eyes. Granted. This operation officially doesn't exist. Whatever methods you employ, whatever decisions you make, the Alliance will maintain plausible deniability. Then I accept the mission, Alex said simply. As the briefing concluded and preparations began, Alex found herself reflecting on how far she had come from that conversation in the Sigma-19 rec room. Kezdvac had been wrong about humans. Not because they couldn't kill quickly, but because he had underestimated their adaptability, their creativity when faced with seemingly impossible odds. The Helix operatives had made the same mistake. They saw her enhancements as the source of her effectiveness, not recognizing that the human element, the unpredictability, the ability to innovate beyond programmed parameters was what truly made her dangerous. Victor Harlow would learn that lesson soon enough, and when she finished with his operation, there would be no alarm to sound, only silence. Because humans, when properly motivated, could be the most formidable predators in the galaxy. The end.